Chapter 247. Some of the cultivators were still shocked by the roaring red flame beast that was guarding the only entrance of the safe zone. Its mountain-like body cut off the chance for anyone to get in or out. Oh no, this red flame beast is guarding the entrance. We can't even go out to train, how long can it guard us? Those who have returned from training outside must be worse than us. Junior brother, junior sister, when tomorrow noon comes, I will activate the transmission talisman and go out first. Ah. Senior brother, what are you going to do? We have only been here for a month, this beast won't guard us for too long, right? It's best if you don't leave. I will go out and send the news back to the sect. This is a red flame beast with immortal bloodline. If you can kill it and extract its blood essence, it will be priceless. It is definitely more precious than a high-grade spiritual weapon. Even a nascent soul stage master can't really kill it. Others must have the same idea. However, our sect is the closest to here. As long as one of the inner elders comes, it will be enough. Hehe, it's just 100,000 level 8 spirit pills. As long as you send the news back, you can buy a few as a reward. If you can get the blood essence of the red flame beast, the reward will be even greater. Many experienced cultivators with higher cultivation bases had the same idea. However, they could only wait until noon tomorrow to activate the transmission talisman, and it only lasted for a quarter of an hour. After all, the giant transmission array built by the Heavenly Armament Pavilion consumed a lot of energy to operate once. It could not be operated all the time. Otherwise, Duan Yufei, Xia Lanlan and the others would not be in such a desperate situation. They could just activate the transmission talisman. Chen Hao ignored the shocked eyes and the buzzing discussions of the crowd. He took Duan Yufei and Xia Lanlan who had fallen into a coma and quickly flew into the depths of the palaces. The palaces in the safe zone could not be entered at will. Different levels of strength could only enter the palaces of different levels. If one's strength was not enough, the gate of the palace would not open. Once someone entered, the gate would be closed. No matter how strong one was, they could not open it. It was absolutely safe to cultivate in seclusion here. This was also the reason why all the cultivators dared to gather together. Otherwise, the safe zone would be filled with blood and flesh. Who would come here? Chen Hao already knew the situation from Itoda. It wasn't until they reached the front of a huge palace in the core area that Chen Hao stopped in front of everyone's gasps. He sent out a beam of energy and suspended the two unconscious people in the air. Then, he pressed his palm against the door, and a majestic energy surged out. Rumble. Without giving the crowd much time to speculate, the palace doors rumbled open with a resplendent light. Chen Hao's figure flashed, and he took a step in with the two of them. Soon after, the door of the palace slowly closed, and silence was restored. Too powerful, awesome. Who would have thought that Chen Hao, who was only in the middle stage of the golden elixir realm, would have such strength? It was unbelievable. That sword strike from before was sufficient to prove that he possessed the combat strength of an expert at the peak of the late-stage golden core realm. Moreover, he was a super genius. Otherwise, it would be absolutely impossible for him to slash the red flame beast apart with a single strike. Now, being able to enter this palace was sufficient to show that his true essence was dense to the peak of the advanced stage of the golden core realm. Moreover, he's also a super genius. That's right. I've been here for half a year, and that row of palaces can only be opened by a few disciples at the peak of the late-stage golden core realm. He's rich. This Chen Hao saved Xia Lanlan, the granddaughter of the Ling Tian sect leader. I'm afraid it's not as simple as the reward of medicinal pills, right? Moreover, there's also the super genius disciple of the Ling Tian sect, Duan Yufei. I'm so jealous. What's the use of being jealous? Cultivate diligently. If we have such strength, we'll be the ones who'll be rich. It's hard to say whether we'll be rich or not. Even if we're rich, we'll still have to be alive to enjoy it, right? Chen Hao's strength is not bad, but don't forget that Fan Fang is looking for him. I'm afraid it won't be long before he gets the news. The crowd discussed animatedly. Chen Hao's strength was undoubtedly shocking. Slicing the crimson flame beast with a sword and blasting open the palace that could only be opened by a super genius at the peak of the advanced stage of the Golden Core realm with a palm was enough to shock everyone present. However, it did not mean that Chen Hao was more powerful than Fan Fang. As for Duan Yufei whom he saved, in everyone's opinion, he was not someone Chen Hao could compare to. One must know that although Duan Yufei had almost died, it was absolutely astonishing that he was able to bring Xia Lanlan and escape to this place. The reason Chen Hao could save them was entirely because of the safety zone. If there was no safety zone, no matter how strong Chen Hao was, how many times could he cut the Crimson Flame Beast? How many times could he withstand the Crimson Flame Beast's attacks? A genius disciple of a grade 9 sect possessed ultimate techniques and combat strength. Not to mention grade 6 and grade 7 sects, even grade 8 sects could not be compared to them. This was because the gap between grade 1 and grade 8 sects had a certain value as the grade increased. However, there was a huge gap between grade 8 and grade 9 sections. It was not something that could be measured by the gap between grade 7 and grade 8 sections. In the entire Eastern continent, there were thousands of sects, but only 10 of them could reach grade 9. They were the best in the world and were the leaders. Even if Ling Tian's sect was slightly weaker among grade 9 sects, they could barely catch up with grade 8 sections. They could not be compared at all. Therefore, even Xia Lanlan who was at the peak of the advanced stage of the Golden Core realm was much stronger than Chen Hao, let alone Duan Yufei who was a super genius in Ling Tian's sect who was ranked 9th. Even Fan Fang who was a grade 6 sect super genius might not be stronger than Xia Lanlan. After stepping into the palace, Chen Hao took out 2 healing pills that Yuan Tairan had given him and stuffed them into their mouths. Then, he urged his mind to wake the 2 unconscious people up. Immediately, Xia Lanlan and Duan Yufei regained consciousness. However, their severely injured and weak bodies did not listen to him at all. They could only force their eyes open. Your lives are saved. Heal your injuries yourselves. As for my reward, just give it to me when you've recovered. I believe that a genius disciple of a grade 9 sect won't go back on his word. Chen Hao said calmly. Don't worry. Thank you. Duan Yufei said weakly with a hint of gratitude in his eyes. Xia Lanlan originally had a look of gratitude, but after hearing Chen Hao's words, there was an obvious change in her expression. Although there was no disdain, there was no gratitude either. He had only saved her for the reward. You're welcome. I'm just doing it for the reward you mentioned, Chen Hao said calmly. Initially, when he decided to save them, he did not think about the reward. However, after knowing their identities, he had to accept the reward. Proud and unyielding, he didn't want to be associated with flattery. Especially the people from Ling Tian's sect, he could not. May I ask? How should I address you, brother? Star-picking sect, Chen Hao. Alright, heal yourselves, Chen Hao said directly since he knew he could not hide it anymore. He was about to walk out of the palace as he spoke. Hearing Chen Hao's name and sect, Xia Lanlan's eyes were filled with shock as she stared at Chen Hao. Brother Chen, wait. Duan Yufei said. Chen Hao stopped and turned around to ask, is there anything else? I can give you the reward now. You can take everything in my storage ring. It's definitely worth more than 10 million grade 8 spirit pills. Brother Chen, please give one of the little nirvana pills to my junior sister. Duan Yufei said strenuously. At the same time, he activated the remaining energy in his dantian to refine the healing medicine that Chen Hao had injected into his dantian. He could feel that the healing medicine was not bad, but it was too weak for his and Xia Lanlan's injuries. It was not enough to describe him and Xia Lanlan as being on the brink of death. Not only were their bodies severely injured, but their energy was almost completely depleted as well. With Chen Hao's medicine, it would take at least a few months for them to fully recover. Hearing Duan Yufei's words, a faint blush appeared on Xia Lanlan's pale face. She naturally knew how precious the little nirvana pill was. In the sect, only the top 10 disciples in the inner sect would be rewarded with a healing medicine by the sect leader. However, she did not reject it. Because as the granddaughter of the sect leader, she also had one. Little nirvana pill. Chen Hao was slightly taken aback as he stared at Duan Yufei and said, "You're telling me this now, aren't you afraid that I will kill you and swallow the little nirvana pill?" "You shouldn't be afraid. A grade 9 sect is not something that our little star-picking sect can offend. Furthermore, so many people have seen it. But, if you're a little more discreet, it seems that it's possible to make one of you die from serious injuries." "You, Chen Hao, you are actually this kind of person." Hearing Chen Hao's words, Xia Lanlan did not know where the strength came from, but she actually stared fiercely at Chen Hao and called him by his name with an extremely strange expression. "Junior sister, don't misunderstand. Brother Chen Hao is not that kind of person." Before Chen Hao could say anything, Duan Yufei stopped him and said, "Brother Chen, please." Although Chen Hao felt that Xia Lanlan's gaze was a little strange, he did not suspect her. He smiled slightly and did not continue to threaten the two as he directly channeled his energy into Duan Yufei's body. Duan Yufei borrowed Chen Hao's energy to activate the storage ring, and a jade bottle emitting a milky white light immediately floated in front of Chen Hao. "Brother Chen, I have already erased the imprint on the storage ring. Take it." "Thank you," Duan Yufei said. Chen Hao smiled slightly and opened the jade bottle first. With a thought, a fiery red crystal pill flew into Xia Lanlan's mouth. Immediately, without needing Chen Hao to do anything, rays of red light rose from Xia Lanlan's body and a strong medicinal fragrance immediately filled the entire space. At this time, Chen Hao took off the storage ring on Duan Yufei's hand. The little nirvana pill is really not bad. Chen Hao did not look at the things in Duan Yufei's storage ring and directly kept it. He stared at Xia Lanlan, who had already sunk into extreme pain, and said softly with a complicated expression in his eyes. He could sense that Xia Lanlan's injuries were quickly recovering and would definitely be completely healed in less than an hour. But at this moment, his mind was thinking of the devastatingly beautiful Xia Yuyu. Not long ago, he had almost been killed by Xia Yuyu's shock. It was because he had swallowed Xia Yuyu's nirvana pill, a nirvana pill that was countless times more precious than the little nirvana pill.
Lightly shaking his head, Chen Hao turned around and stepped out of the palace.
Chapter 248. Roar! 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 The moment Chen Hao stepped out of the palace, the roaring flame beast guarding the entrance of the safe zone roared even louder. Obviously, this monster had been paying attention to Chen Hao from dozens of miles away. So vengeful and powerful. With this guy guarding the entrance, I'm afraid no one will be able to enter or leave in a short time, except for me. Chen Hao's lips curled up slightly. When he saw that everyone's eyes were on him again, he hurriedly walked to the adjacent huge palace. After entering the palace, Chen Hao sat down cross-legged, took out Duan Yufei's storage ring, and immersed his mind into it. No wonder he's a super genius of a 9th-rank sect. What shocked Chen Hao was that Duan Yufei's high-grade storage ring was definitely of the highest quality. Generally speaking, high-grade storage rings were more than 10 meters square and were not fixed. The larger the space, the higher the price. As long as it was 10 meters square, it was considered a high-grade storage ring. However, the space in Duan Yufei's storage ring was 60 meters in length and 10 meters in height, which was equivalent to a small palace. Thousands of milky white crystals were neatly piled together. They were middle-grade primal crystal stones. Primal crystal stones could only be used when one entered the Khanate realm, which was the Saint realm. Even Khanate realm experts would only be willing to use them when they were breaking through the barrier. They were extremely precious. However, for Golden Elixir realm experts, primal crystal stones were essential for cultivation. They were much more precious than level 8 spiritual pills and the rarer level 9 spiritual pills. And this was in the case of lower-grade primal crystal stones. In theory, 100 level 8 spiritual pills or 10 level 9 spiritual pills could be exchanged for one lower-grade primal crystal stone. However, under normal circumstances, no one would be willing to exchange primal crystal stones for elixirs. This was because primal crystal stones were essential for cultivation for experts above the golden elixir realm. Using food as an analogy, level 8 and level 9 spiritual pills were simple meals, while primal crystal stones were delicious dishes. Middle-grade primal crystal stones were even more precious. One was equivalent to 10 lower-grade primal crystal stones, which was also theoretical. If one really wanted to exchange for elixirs, they could definitely exchange for 12. 5,500 mid-grade primal crystal stones are equivalent to 66,000 low-grade primal crystal stones. One low-grade primal crystal stone is equivalent to 100 level 8 spirit pills, which is equivalent to 6,600,000 level 8 spirit pills. In addition to the mid-grade primal crystal stones, there were nearly 13,000 low-grade primal crystal stones, 40,000 level 9 spirit pills, and 1,300,000 level 8 spirit pills. All of these added up to about 10 million level 8 spiritual pills. Moreover, there were countless large pieces of ores and other items that were obviously of great value in the storage ring. Even without careful calculation, Qin Hao knew that the value of Duan Yufei's storage ring far exceeded 10 million Tier 8 spirit pills, or even 20 million Tier 8 spirit pills. Phew, Qin Hao let out a long sigh, and a smile appeared on his face. Although he didn't expect to get a reward, he really got it. Especially when he saw such a shocking amount of wealth, Qin Hao suddenly felt that it was worth it. He deserved it, and he deserved it. Even if he was a little reluctant to take it, but they did it willingly, didn't they? It was a fair trade, wasn't it? I'm afraid Fan Fong will take at least 2 hours to come back. This red flame beast won't be able to stop him from coming in. I'll recover to my peak state first. Qin Hao didn't use much energy to save Duan Yufei and Xia Lanlan, but he used at least 1/5 of his energy to cut the red flame beast in half. Facing Fan Fong, who was half a step away from the nascent soul stage, Qin Hao didn't dare to let his guard down. Taking a deep breath, Qin Hao took out a mid-grade primal crystal stone, pressed his palms on it, and began to refine and absorb the purer and more majestic energy within. Whoosh! Fan Fong's body moved like lightning, and he returned to the safe zone as fast as he could. Die, die, die. This time I'll chop this son of a bitch into meat paste and refine his soul. His soul will be destroyed, and he will never be reincarnated. I'll avenge my sister. And Tan Tai Lien, who hasn't come out yet. Fan Fong had suppressed his anger for 2 years, and the closer he got to the safe zone, the more intense it burned. However, he was still a little worried about whether Qin Hao's words were true or not. But he could only believe it for now, because he couldn't find Qin Hao. The beautiful girl in the blue dress was silent. Although Fan Fong, who was half a step away from the nascent soul stage, had increased his speed to the maximum, the girl's body was like a flickering shadow, and she always maintained the same distance from Fan Fong. However, the terrifying aura emanating from Fan Fong's body made the girl frown. Hey, what are you running for? A stream of light suddenly shot out from a fork in the road. Seeing that the figures had increased their speed to the maximum and were rushing toward the safe zone, this figure appeared beside a cultivator who was running wildly and asked condescendingly. What's the matter? Ah. We're chasing Fan Fong, the super genius of the Flying Sword sect, Fan Fong. The disciple was startled when he sensed the terrifying aura coming from the figure, and hurriedly answered truthfully. Fan Fong of the Flying Sword sect. Yes. We're just here to watch the fun. Fan Fong wants to kill Qin Hao of the star-picking sect, and that Qin Hao is also a super genius. Super genius my ass. After the figure understood what was going on, he said disdainfully, and then turned into a streak of light and sped away. Qin Hao, the runner-up of the 100 Empire ranking who tied with Leng Yihan. It's said that he's good friends with Leng Yihan. He must be the one who killed the disciple of the Flying Sword sect. I'd like to see how powerful the little 100 Empire ranking is. This figure was none other than the inner disciple of the Myriad Pill Pavilion, Nia Wanshan, who ranked first among the top 10 experts. He was the guy who had moved the positioning disc and ruined Qinhao's plan. At this moment, his handsome face flashed with a hint of viciousness. He had originally thought that it was Leng Yihan who had killed the disciple of the Flying Sword sect, but based on the current situation, it should be Qinhao. Qinhao, who was good friends with Leng Yihan. Naturally, he had to rush over to see if he could find Leng Yihan. With his strength increased again, he was confident that he could kill Leng Yihan here. What a beautiful girl, her strength is not bad either. With his astonishing speed, Nia Wanshan quickly overtook countless cultivators and caught up to the front. At this moment, he saw a graceful figure in a blue dress. Through the black veil, he could vaguely see the girl's beautiful face. Hiss! Suddenly increasing his speed again, Nia Wanshan appeared beside the beautiful girl like lightning. The girl frowned slightly, and a cold aura suddenly burst out. Hee. Miss, don't misunderstand. I'm Nia Wanshan, ranked first among the inner disciples of the Myriad Pill Pavilion. May I know your name? Nia Wanshan smiled slightly and said. The viciousness on his face had long disappeared without a trace. His eyes were bright and full of expression, and he did not hide his admiration for the beautiful girl at all. He cupped his fists in a cultured and elegant manner. Nia Wanshan was confident that with his reputation in the cultivation world and his handsome and elegant appearance, he would have no problem winning the favor of this beautiful girl. The first among the inner disciples of the Myriad Pill Pavilion seems to be Leng Yihan, right? What Nia Wanshan did not expect was that although the girl had put away her fighting spirit, there was a hint of sarcasm in her tone as she glanced at Nia Wanshan. Her voice was very pleasant, but it carried a chill that made one's hair stand on end. Nia Wanshan's face darkened. If anyone else dared to say this in front of him, he would have killed them with a slap. But now, he suppressed the anger in his heart and said with a smile, Miss, you're well informed. However, you probably don't know that Leng Yihan defeated me completely by relying on a despicable sneak attack, right? Hee. Leng Yihan also came to the Black Wind Ancient Cave. If nothing unexpected happens, you will soon know who is the real number one of the Myriad Pill Pavilion. With me, there will be no other. Is that so? Then I'm really looking forward to it. The girl said lightly, and in the depths of her beautiful eyes, an imperceptible chill flashed. May I know your name? Which high-level sect are you from? Nia Wanshan's face flashed with confidence as he asked again. Chen Shui, a loose cultivator, the girl said coldly. Good name. I didn't expect Miss Chen Shui to be a loose cultivator with such cultivation. What a pity. Miss Chen Shui, are you willing to join our Myriad Pill Pavilion? With Miss Chen Shui's age and cultivation, I only need to say a word, and the sect will definitely give you special treatment as an inner disciple. Sorry, I'm not interested in the sect. Hiss. After the beautiful girl finished speaking, she suddenly sped up. Obviously, she didn't want to be with Nia Wanshan. You're arrogant. Not bad. Nia Wanshan didn't care at all. He smiled and followed her again. Such a beautiful girl with such cultivation would definitely have countless suitors. If it was easy to get her, she would have become someone's cultivation partner long ago. He wouldn't have stayed until now. To Nia Wanshan, it was a great opportunity for him to meet her this time. How could he not be patient? Red Flame Beast? Fan Feng, who was rushing at full speed, sensed the terrifying aura of a demonic beast hundreds of miles away. He was originally wondering why there was such a terrifying demonic aura in the safety zone. When he got close, Fan Feng suddenly stopped. 300 miles away, he stared in horror at the mountain-like red flame beast blocking the entrance of the palace area. Roar! Roar! The terrifying roar of the beast seemed to contain monstrous anger. Phew! It's the red flame beast. How could it be here? The beautiful young woman and Nia Wanshan who had followed closely behind also revealed a trace of astonishment in their eyes as they thought to themselves. The three of them didn't dare to approach recklessly, and they all restrained their auras. They knew how terrifying the red flame beast was. Once it caught up, even they wouldn't be able to escape. Fortunately, this was the safety zone. It wouldn't be a problem for them to resist for a while and escape into the safety zone. However, what puzzled them was that the red flame beast clearly sensed their arrival, but it didn't rush over. It just guarded the entrance of the palace and roared angrily. Ah! While Fan Fang, Nia Wanshan, and the beautiful girl were hesitating, some cultivators had arrived one after another. They couldn't help but cry out in horror. I've been waiting for you. Fan Fang's face flashed with a hint of viciousness, and he suddenly rushed toward the entrance of the safety zone. Chapter 249. The more people there were, the more targets there would be. Fan Fang was sure that he could resist the red flame beast for a while, but if the red flame beast did not give him time to get into the safe zone and chased after him, it would be a tragedy. Fan Fang, who had already noticed the two experts behind him, did not take them into account. Because he knew that the beautiful woman's aura was extremely obscure, and her speed was definitely not inferior to his. The other expert who had just chased after him was Nia Wanshan. Fan Fang had known him for a long time, but they had not interacted with each other. He knew how strong Nia Wanshan was, and it was impossible to tell who would win before they really fought. Therefore, it was unlikely that these two people would become his scapegoats. But it was different now. Among the cultivators who came one after another, some who knew the terror of the red flame beast were fine, while others felt the terror of the red flame beast, but were not very afraid. In their opinion, with so many experts present, how could a demonic beast overturn the sky? Hiss! Fan Fang turned into a stream of light. His aura was still restrained, but his speed was not as fast as before. Sure enough, it was as he expected. Many cultivators who did not know the immortal body of the red flame beast saw Fan Fang rushing to meet it head-on, and immediately wanted to take advantage of the situation and follow him. Miss Chen Shui, let's go, we also, whoosh. The beautiful girl turned a deaf ear to the flies around her. She ignored them and directly turned into a streak of light. Obviously, she had already lost the most basic patience after being harassed by the flies for an hour without any sense of shame. Humph, what's there to be proud of? None of the women that I, Nia Wanshan, value can escape from my hands. You're just a rogue cultivator. If it weren't for the fact that you have some weight, I would have tolerated you a little longer. If you had crossed my bottom line, don't blame me for reversing the order and conquering your body first, then your heart. Nia Wanshan thought in his heart. Staring at the graceful blue dress, a touch of imperceptible lust flashed in his eyes. He took a step forward and rushed out as fast as lightning. The three experts have rushed out, what are you waiting for? Now is not the time to lose. Let's go, now is the time to rush into the safe zone. Senior brother Fan is going, quick. Those who could chase after Fan Fang to watch the show were naturally extremely curious disciples. At this moment, they naturally wouldn't give up. Although it was a little dangerous, cultivators lived their lives in danger. With so many people, it was nothing compared to the perilous experience. As long as there was a sliver of a chance, they could rush into the safe zone. Fan Fang is rushing over. There are so many cultivators. This is going to be interesting. It can't be. What a stunning woman. Who is that? His aura seems to be stronger. Fan Fang, the stunning beauty, and Nia Wanshan, who had caught up from behind, took the lead. The three of them knew that if they worked together, it would be easier to deal with the red flame beast and rush into the safe zone. Roar! As Fan Fang and the others charged toward it, the red flame beast turned and let out an enraged roar. This roar was obviously different from the previous one. It was like a clap of thunder that pierced through the heavens. It contained a terrifying aura that seemed capable of destroying the heavens and extinguishing the earth. All of the demonic beasts within a 500-kilometer radius prostrated themselves on the ground, their necks tucked in, and their bodies trembled. Some early-stage golden elixir realm cultivators fell from the sky like dumplings being dropped into a pot, sound wave attack. Get out of my way. Sword-raining meteor cut. Fan Fong shouted. Mountain-piercing fist. Sky-pointing finger. Fan Fong, Nia Wanshan, and the stunning beauty, who were in the lead, displayed their powerful skills one after another when they were about 1,000 feet away from the red flame beast. Their restrained aura suddenly burst out to an extremely terrifying level, almost at the same time. Fan Fong displayed the sword-raining firmament skill, the unparalleled skill of the sword-raining sect. He pinched his fingers together, and the sword itself contained a terrifying aura that seemed to tear the void apart. Nia Wanshan condensed a golden fist that exuded an ancient mystery, containing a terrifying aura that was no weaker than Fan Fong's. The stunning beauty pointed out a finger, and the surrounding space froze. The violent and thick energy of heaven and earth gathered madly in her jade-like finger, which was emitting an icy blue light. However, the jade-like finger did not expand at all, and it still looked like a real person's finger. Compared to the mountain-like red flame beast, it was even smaller than an ant in front of an elephant. However, its light became brighter and brighter, more and more condensed, and the incomparably fierce and invincible aura shocked countless cultivators in the safe zone who were watching this scene. So powerful, one is Fan Fong, and the other is the super genius Nia Wanshan, who is ranked first in the 7th grade sect, the Myriad Elixir Pavilion. I'm afraid their strength is about the same. Who is that stunning beauty? She is also very strong. I'm afraid she is no weaker than the two of them. Strange. With such strength and such a peerless beauty, how can she not be famous? How can you even know her, senior brother? Most likely, she is a super genius from a powerful sect who just came out to gain experience. Otherwise, it is impossible that no one knows her. When the crowd saw the powerful attacks of the three experts, they instantly broke into a discussion. Especially the stunning beauty, it was not strange that no one knew her, but it was a little strange that the countless disciples present who often went out to gain experience did not know her at all. The only explanation was that she was a disciple who had just come out to gain experience. Such situations often occurred in powerful sections. It was not rare for sects that had ultimate techniques that required a pure and untainted soul to cultivate. For example, the 9th grade sect, Ling Tian sect, had an ultimate technique that required the purest soul to cultivate. Roar! Even the highly intelligent red flame beast could feel the aura of the three ant-like humans. They were not inferior to the hateful Qin Hao in the slightest. Even compared to Duan Yufei, who was almost killed by it, there was not much difference. Therefore, at this moment, it stretched out its arm that was 1,000 feet long. With a roar, a fist the size of a small mountain blasted toward the three people's attacks. Boom! 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 3 terrifying explosions sounded almost at the same time. Fan Fong's sword abruptly dodged the roaring flame beast's fist at an amazing speed, then turned into a huge light screen, slashing towards the roaring flame beast's neck. The roaring flame beast's lava-like body was cut into 2 halves by the neck. The stunning beauty's ant-like fingers shot directly between the red flame beast's eyebrows. With a loud bang, it pierced through the red flame beast's body. Crash! The red flame beast's lava-like body immediately collapsed. However, this time, the collapse was like a mountain torrent that rolled toward the 3 of them. Break! 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 Boom! 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 The 3 of them frantically activated their strongest protective true origin energy to force back the lava that contained the red flame beast's terrifying will that burned everything. At the same time, they turned into 3 streaks of light that were as fast as lightning. With a loud rumble, they successfully rushed into the safe zone. Swoosh! 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 Some cultivators with higher cultivation seized this critical opportunity and swarmed into the safe zone like a swarm of locusts. However, some of the weaker disciples who did not accurately estimate the red flame beast's power and whose protective true origin energy was broken by the terrifying temperature of the lava halfway through the safe zone. They screamed miserably and were set ablaze. Then, they turned into ashes without leaving even a trace. The gold cores in their bodies became the red flame beast's nourishment. This horrible scene scared some of the cultivators out of their wits and they quickly retreated. Roar! The roar that resounded through the heaven and earth became the alarm bell that signaled the red flame beast's bloodlust. With the nourishment of the gold cores, the red flame beast took shape again in just a breath's time. Its aura became even more terrifying. The lava-like energy condensed into numerous fireballs and shot down the cultivators who were fleeing in panic. As for the disciples who did not hesitate and continued to rush forward, although they were severely injured, they succeeded. When enemies meet on a narrow path, the brave will win. In fact, many of the dead could have fought their way through, but they had lost their courage and could only die. What a terrifying guy! The beautiful girl in her blue dress was untainted by a speck of dust. She completely ignored the burning gazes and turned to stare at the red flame beast behind her, thinking to herself. It had to be said that a beautiful girl, especially a powerful one, would attract the most attention no matter where she went. Fan Feng and Nia Wanshan were equally powerful, but almost all eyes were focused on the stunning blue dress. Son of a bitch, Qin Hao, get out here. Fan Feng did not give the crowd much time to wait. With a sudden explosion, like a thunderclap, the whole palace trembled. Some of the weaker cultivators activated their protective true origin energy and quickly retreated. Senior brother, this Fan Feng is not as strong as Qin Hao, right? Qin Hao cut the red flame beast in half with a single sword strike. The three of them joined forces. It's hard to say. It doesn't matter whether they joined forces or not. Qin Hao hid his aura and launched a sneak attack. Fan Feng and the other two fought head-on. Besides, didn't Fan Feng cut the red flame beast in half with a single sword strike? Let's wait and see, the show is about to start. Could Nia Wanshan and the girl be the experts that Fan Feng has invited? I don't think so. These people are very concerned about their own reputations. They would not join forces against Qin Hao, who is only at the intermediate golden core stage. Son of a bitch, how dare he call him son of a bitch? No one objected to Fan Feng's words, but the girl in the blue dress, beautiful eyes, hidden under the black veil, shone with an undetectable murderous intent. At that moment, everyone's eyes were fixed on a huge palace. Fan Feng's sharp senses naturally picked up on the crowd's discussion. Coupled with the crowd's gaze, he was instantly sure that Qin Hao was not lying to him, and that he was in that palace. Hiss! Fan Feng turned into a ray of light and rushed to the entrance of the palace where Qin Hao was. Son of a bitch, come out. Today, I, Fan Feng, will tear you to pieces and destroy your soul. Fan Feng roared and slammed his palm on the palace door. Fan Feng knew that he would not be able to break it, but he could not suppress the anger in his heart. The expression on his face became ferocious and terrifying. He had waited for this day for too long. Now, he could finally avenge his beloved sister. Chapter 250. Another word, son of a bitch. Fan Feng's mind was only filled with the desire to avenge his sister and tear Qin Hao to shreds. He didn't notice that not far away, the girl in the blue dress was biting her lips under the black veil. Her eyes once again emitted a strong killing intent that was bone-chilling. Nia Wanshan, on the other hand, had noticed the blue-dressed girl's strange behavior. However, at this moment, both he and the blue-dressed girl were standing behind Fan Feng, and Fan Feng was standing at the entrance of the palace. From this angle, Nia Wanshan could not help but misunderstand. He thought to himself, could it be that she also has a grudge against that Qin Hao? That's fun. Qin Hao is on good terms with Leng Yihan. I can use him to attack Leng Yihan. Fan Feng, right? Hiss. Nia Wanshan's lips curled into a proud smile. In a flash, he appeared beside Fan Feng. What? Brother Nia, are you going to interfere? Fan Feng, who was furious, frowned and said coldly. If it were anyone else, he would have killed them. However, Nia Wanshan was so powerful that he did not dare to. That's right. But you don't have to worry. Nia Wanshan, am helping you. You can kill him. I just need to teach him a lesson. If I don't teach a son of a bitch on the 100 Empire ranking a lesson, I will be very unhappy. Especially if he is on good terms with Leng Yihan. Ahem, I forgot. You are also on the 100 Empire ranking. But I didn't mean to criticize you. Ha! Fan Feng's face became very ugly. If not for the fact that his goal was to kill Qin Hao, he would have already attacked Nia Wanshan. Qin Hao is still not coming out. He must be afraid. Fan Feng's aura is indeed terrifying. He is half a step away from the nascent soul stage. I heard that he was half a step away from the nascent soul stage a long time ago. Based on his talent, he should have triggered the divine punishment long ago. The only reason he hasn't is because of Qin Hao's inner demon. That should be the case. The divine punishment does not only test the physical body, but also the state of mind. Even someone as strong as Fan Feng does not dare to be careless. The slightest carelessness will result in the destruction of both body and soul. No wonder Qin Hao would save Duan Yufei and Xia Lanlan from Ling Tian's sect. He's so smart. It's obvious that he's waiting for Duan Yufei and Xia Lanlan to help him after they've healed. Phew. Nia Wanshan wants to participate as well. Interesting. So it seems that the girl in the blue dress is also with them. TSK, 3 against 3, things are going to get interesting. They're all super geniuses. But Duan Yufei and Xia Lanlan's injuries will take a long time to recover. Otherwise, Fan Feng and the other two won't stand a chance. When Fan Feng began to attack the palace gates and Nia Wanshan intervened, the crowd was abuzz with discussion. Although they didn't know how long the stalemate would last, there was no doubt that once Qin Hao came out, he would erupt with something that was beyond everyone's imagination. These cultivators were looking forward to seeing such a battle between super genius disciples. If they could understand a thing or two, it would be beneficial to their own cultivation. Save Duan Yufei and Xia Lanlan from the Ling Tian sect? What did he mean? Could it be that these two are also here? The crowd's discussion did not escape the ears of the girl in the blue dress. However, Nia Wanshan and Fan Feng, who had their own thoughts, were not in the mood to listen to the small fry's discussion. Hiss hiss hiss. At this moment, as soon as Nia Wanshan finished speaking, a dense aura suddenly came out of the palace where Qin Hao was. Ah! How's this possible? The aura of a breakthrough. Qin Hao is breaking through at this moment. The crowd immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. The mysterious and dense qi would only appear when one was breaking through to the next realm. Without a doubt, Qin Hao had entered the barrier of the intermediate aura's core stage at this critical moment. This was something that no one had expected. After all, Qin Hao's aura was only at the intermediate stage of the golden core realm. He had not even reached the peak of the intermediate stage. How could he break through to the intermediate stage now? Fan Feng's brows furrowed when he heard the crowd's discussion and exclamations. Initially, he was still hesitating whether he should agree to Nia Wanshan's request. However, at this moment, he nodded abruptly. A hint of viciousness flashed across his face as he said, "This son of a bitch killed my sister. I'll let him have a taste of qi deviation." Ha ha ha. Voila, the crowd burst into a buzz of discussion. How ruthless. Shameless, how could he do this? Lower your voice. Don't invite trouble. In the world of cultivation, interrupting the cultivation of others was a taboo. When others were breaking through to the next stage, no one was allowed to disturb them. This was especially true after the Golden Core realm. If a cultivator was disturbed while breaking through to the next stage, it was very likely that they would suffer qi deviation. At best, they would fail to break through and suffer physical and mental damage. At worst, their cultivation would be crippled. This was undoubtedly a very sinister and despicable thing to do. Fan Feng instantly gathered a huge amount of energy and was about to slam his palm on the palace doors. Scram! At this moment, what no one could have imagined was that a cold and furious roar suddenly exploded out. Hiss. A blue streak of light appeared in front of Fan Fong at lightning speed, and a jade-like hand like ice violently met Fan Fong's attack. Pang! There was a dull sound of energy colliding. The blue figure staggered back 3 steps, each step leaving a deep footprint on the hard stone floor. Fan Fong, on the other hand, took a step back. Only then did everyone see who had blocked Fan Fong's path. The girl in the blue dress. You want to help that son of a bitch? Fan Fong's eyes suddenly became murderous as he stared at the beautiful girl. Such shameless behavior, you are the son of a bitch. You are worse than a son of a bitch. If you have the guts, fight him fair and square. Yes, that's right, Miss Chen is right. Fan Fong, you are more or less a person. Interrupting someone's breakthrough is such a despicable action. You are at least a super genius of a 6th-rank sect. This is unbearable. Nia Wanshan was stunned for a moment. Then, he took advantage of the situation and put on a sanctimonious look. He stared at Fan Fong and said with a trace of disdain in his eyes. Fan Fong's face turned ashen as he gritted his teeth. He did not take the girl in the blue dress seriously just because of the collision of their palms. At most, he could just destroy her. But Nia Wanshan's change of stance made him very angry. You are not a good person either. So what if you are a disciple of the 100 Empire ranking? I am a disciple of the 100 Empire ranking. If you want to fight, I will keep you company. What caused Nia Wanshan's expression to change greatly was that not only did the young girl in a blue dress not give him face in the slightest, her peerlessly beautiful eyes that were hidden under the black veil instead contained a wisp of piercingly cold killing intent as she looked at him and spoke with disdain. Get out of here. Whoever dares to stop him from breaking through will die. Hiss. What happened next shocked everyone even more. The girl in the blue dress strangely disappeared before everyone's eyes. Not only did she disappear, but her aura also disappeared. Even an expert like Fan Fong could not capture any aura. What was even more shocking was that streaks of sharp and cold sword light were flashing at the entrance of the palace, like venomous snakes on standby, ready to launch a fatal attack at any time. Leng Yihan? No, it can't be Leng Yihan. Nia Wanshan's expression changed greatly. When he felt a pair of viper eyes vaguely lock onto him, he was shocked. This concealment technique was exactly the same as Leng Yihan's. But Leng Yihan was a man, and the one in front of him was a woman. The aura of the two were completely different, but the only similarity was their concealment technique. It must be related to Leng Yihan. Fuck. Could it be Leng Yihan's lover? You refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. No wonder you looked at me so coldly. No wonder you know so much about the matters of the Sword Clan. So you are Leng Yihan's man. Very good, very good. You have crossed my bottom line. Today, I, Nia Wanshan, will let you know the consequences of playing tricks on me, bitch. Boom. Nia Wanshan no longer had any scruples. He tore off his mask of hypocrisy. His expression was ferocious, and his aura erupted like a flood. At the same time, he said to Fan Fong, do what you have to do. Today, we will work together to kill this bitch and those bastards of the 100 Empire ranking. There are 3 of them, and that bitch Leng Yihan. Just like this bitch, they are good at concealment. They must be around. Okay. Although Fan Fong was disgusted by those bastards of the 100 Empire ranking, he could only let it go at this point. After all, Nia Wanshan had already explained that he was not talking about him. As soon as he finished speaking, he did not need Nia Wanshan's reminder. His aura was raised to the limit. He, who was half a step away from the nascent soul stage, released a terrifying aura that was not inferior to Nia Wanshan's. The girl in the blue dress, who had concealed her aura, frowned. Her expression was grave. She was a little annoyed. Why didn't she hold it in? She should have held it in. At least wait for Qinhao to come out. Now that she was facing one of them, she was confident that she could handle it. But if there were 2 of them, rumble, just as the battle was about to break out. Everyone was confused. They did not understand the relationship between the girl in the blue dress, Fan Fang, Nia Wanshan, Chen Hao, and Leng Yihan, who had not appeared at all. Suddenly, a huge palace beside them opened with a rumble. Duan Yufei and Xia Lanlan came out together. Two extremely powerful auras instantly shrouded the entire palace complex. Duan Yufei's gaze contained a soul-stirring power. Whoever dares to interrupt Chen Hao's ascension will die. Whoosh! Duan Yufei held Xia Lanlan's hand and appeared at the entrance of Chen Hao's palace as if he was taking a stroll. He completely ignored the girl in the blue dress's hidden aura. Firstly, the situation earlier was under his control. The girl in the blue dress was with them. Secondly, although the girl in the blue dress's concealment technique was so powerful that he could not see through it, Duan Yufei was confident that even if the girl in the blue dress wanted to attack him, he had enough strength to block it. Duan Yufei's voice was not cold, but coupled with his terrifying aura, it directly shook people's hearts. No one doubted the authenticity of Duan Yufei's words. Fan Fang and Nia Wanshan were a little stunned. They did not understand why Duan Yufei would suddenly appear and help Chen Hao. How could Duan Yufei and the others not know? He was the super genius who ranked 9th in the inner court of the grade 9 sect, Ling Tian sect. Don't worry. As long as Chen Hao comes out, I won't interfere. You can fight however you want. It has nothing to do with me who lives or dies, Duan Yufei said calmly with a disdainful expression when he saw Fan Fang and Nia Wanshan's shocked eyes. To be continued. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 251. Xia Lanlan only furrowed her brows, not saying anything. In truth, she didn't care about people like Chen Hao. He had saved them, but he had asked for a reward. If it had been someone else, Xia Lanlan would have treated it fairly, and perhaps saved them. But this person was Chen Hao, and she only felt disdain for her sister. She was Xia Yuyu's cousin, and had the best relationship with Xia Yuyu. No one knew Xia Yuyu's matters better than her. How could she not know Chen Hao? But Chen Hao had saved her, and even though he could guess her relationship with Xia Yuyu, he still asked for a reward. There was nothing wrong with him and a girl obtaining the Phoenix's inheritance, as that was fate. There was also nothing wrong with him not participating in the dragon transformation list, as he was threatened by Fan Fang. But he seemed to have forgotten Xia Yuyu's existence. This was something Xia Lanlan couldn't accept. Fortunately, Duan Yufei had explained to her why Chen Hao had done this. Hiss. Seeing Duan Yufei and Xia Lanlan appear, the blue-dressed girl no longer hid her aura, and appeared beside them. Xia Lanlan immediately shifted her gaze to the blue-dressed girl. In the palace, although she knew that someone had appeared to protect Chen Hao, and it was a girl, she had only sensed it, and hadn't seen the blue-dressed girl's true appearance. At this moment, the more Xia Lanlan looked at her, the more she frowned. She was originally considered a rare beauty, but when she saw this young girl, she felt that she was overshadowed. She was just like her dazzling cousin, Xia Yuyu. Any woman who stood in front of her would uncontrollably feel ashamed of their inferiority. Could it be because of this girl that he? Xia Lanlan thought, and then shook her head. From the conversation just now, it seemed that this blue-dressed girl didn't know Chen Hao. Moreover, although the blue-dressed girl made her feel inferior, in her heart, no one could compare to Xia Yuyu. What am I thinking? How could he be worthy of Yuyu? In these 2 years, the reason why Yuyu could not forget about it was entirely because Yuyu did not have any experience. When Yuyu reached the incarnation realm, her grandfather would let her begin to gain experience and truly come into contact with the cultivation world. There are many disciples in the Eastern continent who are more outstanding than him. He's just a disciple of a third-grade sect. His cultivation, talent, status are not worthy of Yuyu. Perhaps the girl in the blue dress sensed Xia Lanlan's gaze and looked at her. As for Xia Lanlan, whose mind was racing, she arrogantly looked at the girl in the blue dress and turned her face away. The corners of the blue-dressed girl's mouth curled up slightly. She didn't understand where Xia Lanlan's hostility came from, and she didn't care about it. Rumble. At this moment, the dense aura emitted from the palace where Qinhao was at suddenly began to soar. It was obvious that Qinhao's breakthrough had reached a critical moment, and it caused the entire palace to rumble. Fan Fang's face turned extremely ugly. He stared at Duan Yufei and said, "Duan Yufei, this is a personal grudge between me and Qinhao. Your Ling Tian sect is a 9th grade sect that's high and mighty. Don't tell me that you don't even follow the basic rules of the cultivation world." Fan Fang forcefully suppressed the rising anger in his heart. Even though Duan Yufei had said that he would not interfere in the battle between the two of them, but now, in front of so many cultivators, stopping him from interrupting Qinhao's breakthrough was equivalent to not giving him face. It was no different from slapping him in the face. If it was not for the fact that the situation was compelling, he would not have tolerated it even if it was a genius disciple from an 8th grade sect. However, he had no choice but to tolerate a super genius from a 9th grade sect. There's no need to talk about the Ling Tian sect. Duan Yufei, don't rely on the power of a sect to walk in the cultivation world. If you're not convinced, you can challenge me. Even if it's a personal grudge, it has to be fair and square. I don't like the shameless act of interrupting someone's breakthrough. If you don't have the confidence to defeat Qinhao, then get lost. Don't embarrass yourself here. Don't talk about personal grudges. Aren't you just afraid that you won't be able to defeat Qinhao when he advances? Duan Yufei said disdainfully. I'm afraid of him. He's just a son of a bitch. Fan Fang, just want him to beg for death. Rumble. Bang. Bang. Before Fan Fang could finish his sentence, an even more terrifying dense aura suddenly came from the huge palace. At the same time, the palace's door opened violently as if it was blown open by a gust of wind. He broke through. At this moment, everyone's eyes were filled with shock as they looked at the entrance of the palace. The overwhelming dense aura shocked everyone. Especially since everyone knew that Qinhao had only broken through from the middle golden core stage to the late golden core stage. How could it cause such a huge commotion? Even Duan Yufei, Fan Fang, and Nia Wanshan were shocked. Because even when he broke through to this stage, it was definitely not so terrifying. What did this mean? Qinhao's breakthrough from the middle golden core stage to the late golden core stage was definitely stronger than theirs. The late golden core stage cultivators present were even more shocked. This breakthrough aura was on a completely different level compared to theirs. Only the girl in the blue dress was calm. There was no shock in her beautiful eyes, only a matter of fact. It was not that she could defeat Qinhao, but that she knew Qinhao better than anyone else. Phew! In the palace, Qinhao felt the powerful energy in his body and his face was filled with excitement. Even he did not expect that he, who was only in the middle golden core stage, could break through to the late golden core stage so quickly. Originally, when he stepped into the palace, he only wanted to adjust himself to the peak state to prepare for the battle with Fan Fang. Because until now, although Qinhao had a certain understanding of his combat strength, he had not fought with a real super genius. Fan Fang, who was half a step away from the nascent soul stage and was a super genius, he did not have a clear idea of his combat strength. Even he did not have absolute confidence and had to be cautious. However, with his freakish recovery ability, he, who did not consume much energy to begin with, only took less than an hour to completely recover. And Fan Fang would have at least an hour to return. Of course, he would not waste time waiting. For the first time, he began to refine the mysterious existence in his mind. No matter what, he couldn't imagine that the mysterious existence would be so powerful. Now, it had only completed the most basic refinement, but it had consumed all the energy in his dantian, which no longer belonged to Ito Tai. It was equivalent to the energy stored in Qinhao's dantian, and it was even more powerful than Ito Tai's late Yuanying stage. This made Qinhao's heart ache. It should be known that this was one of the biggest gains he had made in the Seven Stars Cave Heaven for more than a year. Originally, he thought that with the existence of the nascent soul, it would be enough for him to break through to the nascent soul stage without spending any primal crystal stones. But now, he had consumed all of it. The only thing to be happy about was that while he was refining the mysterious existence, he had also borrowed its energy to break through from the middle nascent soul stage to the late nascent soul stage. Moreover, at the moment of breakthrough, the violent energy emitted from his body uncontrollably blasted the door of the palace open. "Son of a bitch, get out here." After a brief moment of shock, Fan Fang's angry roar resounded through heaven and earth, breaking the gasps of the crowd. Chen Hao, who had been immersed in cultivation, did not have the slightest awareness of the outside world. He did not know that because of him, more than 3,000 cultivators had gathered outside. At this time, Chen Hao, who was immersed in the excitement of the powerful energy, was awakened by Fan Fang. After that, his peerlessly handsome face flashed with a wisp of boundless coldness as he slowly stood up. Whoosh! In the palace, a fierce wind suddenly rose. A terrifying aura, accompanied by a soaring fighting spirit, spread out in all directions. Under everyone's shocked gaze, Chen Hao stepped out of the palace. His figure was as straight as a sword, and his expression was cold. When he saw Duan Yufei, Xia Lanlan, and a beautiful girl standing closest to the entrance of the palace, Chen Hao frowned slightly. When he saw the arrogant Fan Fang and the powerful Nia Wanshan standing together, and the surrounding thousands of cultivators, Chen Hao frowned even more. Obviously, he did not expect the situation to be so lively. Awoo! Awoo! At this moment, to everyone's surprise, the red flame beast, which had finally calmed down, suddenly let out another roar. This time, it was even more ferocious than when it was attacked by Fan Fang, Nia Wanshan, and the blue-dressed girl. Its fiery red eyes stared fixedly at Chen Hao as it waved its huge fists. Its expression seemed to be completely different from Chen Hao. "This girl in blue is good to you." Just now, Fan Fang wanted to interrupt your breakthrough, but she stopped him. "The other one with Fan Fang is called Nia Wanshan. He wants to join forces with Fan Fang to kill you, the girl in blue, and Leng Yihan." At this time, the information from the treasure-hunting sword spirit appeared in Chen Hao's mind. While Chen Hao was cultivating, the treasure-hunting sword spirit had been paying attention to the situation outside, so it was very clear what had just happened. "Leng Yihan?" "Yes, it seems that the girl in blue and Leng Yihan are cultivation companions. I'm not sure about the rest, but I just heard it. Leng Yihan should also be in the Dark Wind Cave, but not here for the time being. The girl in blue is very strong. She dared to fight Fan Fang and Nia Wanshan alone. However, her strength should not be as strong as the two of them. Fortunately, Duan Yufei and Xia Lanlan, who you saved, arrived in time." Duan Yufei stopped Fan Fang. Otherwise, the girl in blue would have fought with the two of them. The treasure-hunting sword spirit said. Chen Hao and the treasure-hunting sword spirit communicated telepathically, and it was completed in an instant, allowing Chen Hao to understand what had just happened. "Many thanks to the three of you for stopping this mad dog for me." Chen Hao did not even look at Fan Fang. His gaze swept across the girl in blue, Duan Yufei, and Xia Lanlan, and he cupped his fists. "Brother Chen, you're too polite. The rest is up to you." Duan Yufei smiled slightly and stared at Chen Hao. He was looking forward to it. He also wanted to see how strong Chen Hao, who had just entered the late Golden Core stage, was. "It's just a mad dog." Hiss. Chen Hao did not say anything else. He took a step forward and rushed directly to a huge training field in the palace complex. Chapter 252. Let's see how long you can keep up your stubbornness. Boom. Fan Fang's energy was already at its peak, and as he flew towards the fighting arena in the safe zone, he suddenly burst into a dazzling light. Along with the powerful true core and the domineering aura of a half-step nascent soul cultivator, he was like a blazing sun, dispersing the gloomy clouds. What was even more shocking was that as the light flickered, one could faintly see the phantom of a ferocious beast with a strange appearance above Chen Hao's head. The phantom wasn't large, but it gave people a terrifying feeling that it could trample on the earth and hold up the sky, as if it could break through the heavens and tear the void apart at any moment. Fan Feng's ferocious face was cold, and his entire body was suffused with a terrifying aura that made people not dare to look directly at him. What a terrifying aura! Is this the true power of a half-step nascent soul cultivator? Whoosh! 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 Many of the cultivators who had gathered around the fighting arena were shocked by Fan Feng's terrifying aura. Humph! Chen Hao, that reckless fool, is dead for sure this time. I have never seen Senior Brother Fan release such a terrifying aura before. Senior Brother Fan is going to use his ultimate move. Do you see that image? That should be the mysterious legacy that Senior Fan Feng obtained, and I have never seen Senior Fan use it before. There's nothing much to see after this. I'm afraid that once Senior Fan makes his move, Chen Hao, that arrogant fool, will be smashed into minced meat. Several disciples of the sword faction were full of confidence in Fan Feng at this moment, and they looked at Chen Hao with disdain as they discussed. Fan Feng had never shown his true power in the ranking battles of the inner disciples of the sword faction, not because he could hide it, but because no one had the ability to force him to use his ultimate move. But now, before the battle had even begun, Fan Feng had already raised his aura to such a level. How terrifying would it be? The inheritance of the Demon King of Tianluo? Duan Yufei and some of the more knowledgeable disciples gasped when they saw the image above Fan Feng's head. Even they did not expect Fan Feng to have such a terrifying hidden power. What is that? Xia Lanlan frowned and asked Duan Yufei. The blue-dressed girl and some cultivators not far from the two of them also pricked up their ears. Tian Luo Demon King, one of the most powerful ferocious beast kings in ancient times. He was ferocious and aggressive, and his combat power was above that of the primordial divine dragon. I never thought that Fan Feng would be able to obtain his inheritance. I'm afraid Chen Hao is in trouble. Duan Yufei said softly as he narrowed his eyes and stared at Fan Feng and Chen Hao, who were standing in the middle of the training field. Senior brother, you're not allowed to attack. We no longer owe him anything. Whether he lives or dies, it's up to him. Xia Lanlan said after being slightly surprised. Junior sister, I know what you're thinking. Don't worry, I won't do anything since. Duan Yufei nodded and said. At this moment, he and Xia Lanlan had experienced a life and death crisis. They had pierced through the last layer of paper and officially confirmed their relationship. Moreover, because Xia Lanlan had stopped Duan Yufei from helping Chen Hao, she naturally told him about Xia Yuyu's matter. But he still helped, because he had also risen to his current position step by step. He more or less knew why Chen Hao asked for a reward. With the inheritance of Tian Luo Demon King, Fan Feng's strength is not much weaker than mine. The blue-dressed girl frowned slightly and her expression became particularly serious. She couldn't help but move to the front. The terrifying aura emanating from Fan Feng's body made it clear that even she had no chance of winning. Hundreds of feet away, Chen Hao, who was standing proudly, showed a trace of seriousness in his eyes when the terrifying shadow bloomed above Fan Feng's head. That terrifying aura and pressure made Chen Hao realize that Fan Feng was much more powerful than he had imagined. He had just stepped into the late Golden Core stage, and whether in terms of true essence or aura, he was no match for Fan Feng, who was half a step away from the nascent soul stage and had a powerful inheritance. Although he was not afraid, Chen Hao, who had originally wanted to fight Fan Feng head-on, changed his mind at the last minute. In 10 moves, I, Fan Feng, will make you beg for death. I will kill anyone who stands in my way. After releasing the aura of Tian Luo Demon King, Fan Feng's temperament had undergone a shocking change. The powerful feeling made him look down on everything and the world with disdain. Even the feeling of Duan Yufei, who had been holding back a moment ago, had completely disappeared. So what if you are a 9th-rank sect? I will trample you under my feet. Fan Fang's gaze slowly swept over the blue-dressed girl, Duan Yufei, Xia Lanlan, and the others. Seeing the shocked expressions on their faces, he became even more arrogant. Son of a bitch, kneel down now. Kneel 3 times and kowtow 9 times to my sister's soul in heaven, and I will let you die a quick death. Otherwise, I'll make you suffer a fate worse than death. When I am done torturing you, I will chop off your dog head and destroy your soul so that you will never be reincarnated. Don't think about running away. Today, no one can save you. Fan Fang stared coldly at Qin Hao again and said coldly. You really are a mad dog. Since that is the case, how about we fight to the death? In front of everyone, there will only be life and death, no victory or defeat, until one side dies. No one is allowed to run. No one is allowed to ask for help. Crash! To everyone's surprise, Qin Hao, who was obviously at a disadvantage, said something so cold that it made the surrounding cultivators widen their eyes. Originally, everyone thought that with the support of Duan Yufei and the blue-dressed girl, no matter how powerful Fan Fang was, he would not be able to win with his arrogant and provocative words. But Qin Hao's words had ruined all his chances of survival. Although Duan Yufei and Xia Lanlan had agreed not to help Qin Hao, they still looked at each other in shock. Nia Wanshan, who was also a little shocked, stared at Qin Hao and thought disdainfully, he is as arrogant as that son of a bitch Leng Yihan. Even I have no chance of winning against Fan Fang's aura. What does he have? When this guy is dead, it will be time for me to ravage that bitch Qin Shui. Nia Wanshan thought to himself as he looked at the blue-dressed girl. In his heart, he was sure that the blue-dressed girl was definitely related to Leng Yihan. She is indeed a bitch. Damn bitch. Not only does she have an ambiguous relationship with Leng Yihan, she is also so concerned about this Qin Hao. Could it be that the 3 of them have an even more despicable relationship? Nia Wanshan looked at the blue-dressed girl's expression. Good. Although you are not worthy of fighting with me, Fan Fang, I have to admit that you do not know the immensity of heaven and earth. Son of a bitch, let me see what makes you so confident. Roar. As soon as Fan Fang finished speaking, it was obvious that he could no longer suppress his anger towards Qin Hao. He took a step forward and merged with the phantom of the Tianluo Demon King above his head. Then, the Tianluo Demon King roared into the sky. An earth-shattering roar exploded in the void like thunder. Roar! What frightened everyone was that at this moment, the red flame beast guarding the entrance of the safe zone actually let out a roar. However, what was different from before was that this roar actually contained a trace of fear. When some people looked at the red flame beast, they were shocked to find that the red flame beast was actually running away from the safe zone as if it was scared out of its wits. Even the red flame beast could not withstand the aura of the Tianluo Demon King. How powerful! Duan Yufei and some cultivators who knew about the Tianluo Demon King were all shocked. Tianluo Roaring Fist, injure him. Fan Fang roared and punched out. As the light surged, a few hundred feet of distance was crossed in an instant. The terrifying fist shadow seemed to have condensed into an inescapable net. With a rumbling sound, it contained the power to destroy heaven and earth and brazenly enveloped Qin Hao. The Tianluo Roaring Fist was one of the Tianluo Demon King's inherited unique skills. The Tianluo Roaring Fist covered the sky and earth. Just these 2 words alone meant that this was an all-encompassing and sealing attack. Fan Fang used this move because when he was on the 100 Empire ranking, he knew that Qin Hao was adept at concealment when he was at a lower level. In fact, Fan Fang was absolutely confident that he could destroy Qin Hao in one move. However, that would be letting Qin Hao off too easily. He wanted to make Qin Hao completely terrified and thoroughly trample on him before killing him. Of course, he couldn't waste any of these 10 moves. Otherwise, if he allowed Qin Hao to fight freely, it would be ineffective. He only used 70% of his strength for this move. His goal was to severely injure Qin Hao. Even so, the power of this move still shocked countless cultivators. Hiss! Boom! 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 Wherever the fist shadows passed, the air seemed to be torn apart. The wind created by the fists tore deep trenches in the hard ground. Gravel flew everywhere as the energy wreaked havoc. Looking at the rapidly expanding fist shadows, Chenhao's handsome face shone with coldness and solemnity. His body flashed as he used the 7 stars footwork. He moved as fast as lightning and began to move within a small area. At first, when people saw Chenhao move, they thought that Chenhao was avoiding Fan Fang's attack. However, after a moment of sparks, they found that Chenhao was only moving within a radius of 10 feet around him. He did not avoid the fist shadows at all. Moreover, what surprised them even more was that Chenhao seemed to be moving in 7 fixed positions, shining like bright stars. At the same time, Chenhao's hands were changing into various hand seals at lightning speed. Waves of powerful true energy fluctuations whizzed out from his dantian. Every time his body moved in a circle in 7 directions, the fluctuations on his body would increase layer by layer like bamboo. 7 stars sword finger, 1 finger sky pivot. When Fan Fang's fist shadows were only 200 feet away from Chenhao's cold voice suddenly rang out. At the same time, a loud buzzing sound came from his body. He pointed out a finger. Hiss! Hiss! Boom! Boom! To be continued. Chapter 253. However, the shadow of the fist that had destroyed the giant finger, when it came into contact with Chenhao, who was still moving rapidly in 7 different directions, it only caused a few ripples before it dissipated into nothingness. Obviously, Fan Fang had the upper hand, but it was only a slight one, and posed no threat to Chenhao. Humph, the 7-star sword finger, very good. You must have learned it from the 7-star cave heaven. Second move. Fan Fang was slightly shocked by Chenhao's strength after his first move had failed to achieve the desired effect. Without giving Chenhao any chance to breathe, he suddenly closed in on him and increased his strength to 80%. Cultivators could kill people from 100 or even 1,000 miles away, but strength was still strength and would always be affected by distance. Even the most powerful cultivator was no exception. For the same strength, the closer the distance, the more powerful it would be. The further the distance, the weaker it would be. Therefore, the true pinnacle of battle was often close combat, where one's body was used as a weapon to fight against his opponent. Only in this way could one's strength be maximized. Fan Fang had shortened the distance of a few hundred feet to 100 feet. Even if he threw out the same punch, the damage to Chenhao would be at least twofold. In addition, he had increased his strength by another 10% and used the second move of the sky-roaring punch. He believed that this punch was not something Chenhao could withstand. 7-star sword finger, second finger sky jade. Sensing the surge of Fan Fang's power, Chenhao's expression did not change. His clear voice contained an unparalleled sharpness. His movement speed suddenly increased, and the dazzling starlight became even more intense. What shocked Fan Fang and the crowd was that Chenhao seemed to have formed a doppelganger. One doppelganger split into 2, and the 2 doppelgangers pointed their fingers in the air at the same time. Their postures and angles were completely different, but they pointed at the same time. What did this mean? Those with lower cultivation levels might have thought that Chenhao's movements were too fast, and it seemed like they were done at the same time. However, Duan Yufei, Xia Lanlan, the blue-dressed girl, and Nia Wanshan were all shocked. This was because it was definitely not Chenhao's phantom. Of course, it was definitely not Chenhao's avatar. After all, Chenhao was only at the late stage of the Gold Core realm. It was impossible for him to have the magical power of the Incarnation realm. What a powerful 7-star finger sword. No, it should be a set of unique skills. Chenhao's footwork had actually condensed into a mysterious formation. Through the formation, the 2 fingers that he had shot out exploded at the same time. Moreover, the coordination was flawless. His strength and combat strength were definitely not as simple as doubling. At this moment, Qin Hao's combat strength was definitely equivalent to 3 Qin Hao's. This might be the power of an Earth-class top unique skill. Duan Yufei's eyes lit up as he stared at Qin Hao and thought to himself. How could the star-seizing sect possess such a powerful technique? Xia Lanlan stared at Qin Hao in shock as she thought to herself. The 7-star finger sword must be the unique skill that he obtained from the 7-star cave heaven. The blue-dressed girl's beautiful face, which was hidden under the black veil, revealed a look of surprise as the corners of her mouth curled up slightly. Chen Hao's display of such power made her feel relieved, but at the same time, a little unhappy. This was because, rumble. A terrifying explosion interrupted everyone's astonishment. To everyone's surprise, this time, Qin Hao's giant fingers actually shattered Fan Fang's fist shadows, which were much more terrifying than the first punch. However, the remaining giant fingers did not pose a threat to Fan Fang. After the fist shadows dissipated, they were easily destroyed by Fan Fang's protective genuine vitality. However, such a small change meant that Qin Hao, who was at a disadvantage, had gained a slight advantage. Phew, as expected. After easily gaining the upper hand, Qin Hao thought to himself. A combination of unique skills that can double your combat power. Although this 7-star unique skill is a little low level, it is very suitable for the current you. An old, deep voice, without any emotion, said mechanically in Qin Hao's mind. It was the mysterious existence in Qin Hao's mind. After Qin Hao completed the basic refinement, he could communicate with it directly. However, this guy's voice was really unpleasant to the ears. Every time Qin Hao heard it, he felt as if he was facing a lifeless, emotionless robot. However, according to what the treasure-hunting sword spirit had secretly told him, this was already good enough. Perhaps only Qin Hao could enjoy the emotionless voice of the mysterious existence. The treasure-hunting sword spirit himself and the 5 mythical beasts had to endure the arrogance, and boundless pressure of the mysterious existence. Qin Hao communicated with the mysterious existence in his mind. In fact, under the 7-star formation formed by the 7-star steps, Qin Hao used the second finger of the 7-star sword finger. Merak, although it was called Merak, in reality, it was the same as the second level of the Golden Man that Qin Hao encountered in the 7 Stars Palace. It was a combination of the Dubhe and Merak formations. It made Qin Hao seem as if he had become 2 people. Moreover, the 2 of them cooperated flawlessly. How much could his combat power increase? At least, Qin Hao, who originally only had a 30% chance of winning but had coldly forced himself into a corner, now had a 40% chance of winning. His fighting spirit soared. Although Qin Hao knew very well that Fan Fang had not used his full strength, and he had already raised his strength to the limit, he was not afraid at all. Instead, he was looking forward to the extent that he could unleash the power of the 7-star sword finger. Show me your true strength. Otherwise, it's not enough. At this moment, Qin Hao, whose fighting spirit was high, stared coldly at Fan Fang and said arrogantly. However, because he was constantly using the 7 stars footwork and maintained the circulation of the 7 stars formation, it caused everyone to be utterly unable to see his appearance clearly. Even his voice seemed to be circulating within the profound formation. When it was transmitted out, it was indistinct and unfathomable, yet it was countless times louder, like the evening drum and morning bell, shocking to the extreme. Even Qin Hao himself did not expect the 7-star formation to be so mysterious that it could even amplify sound waves. Good, good, good. I didn't expect a bastard like you to have some strength. You can actually block 70% of my strength. Since that's the case, I'll show you the true strength of Fan Fang. Wrath of the Demon King. Fan Fang took a step forward. This time, he did not hold back. His body seemed to tear the void apart, turning into a stream of light and landing 1,000 feet away from Qin Hao. Fan Fang, who had gathered all his energy in his fist, punched out at Qin Hao, who was moving quickly in front of him. Roar! There was no shadow of the fist, only Fan Fang's fist. To everyone's horror, the huge phantom of the Demon King of Tianluo was condensed to the extreme at this moment. It had shrunk thousands of times and completely condensed on Fan Fang's fist. The sound of the fist breaking through the air became the roar of the Demon King of Tianluo. As the fist punched out, a majestic vital essence whistled between heaven and earth. The energy of heaven and earth in the air became violent. Even more shocking was that in an instant, the space behind Fan Fang seemed to have been emptied. With his fist, the air behind him and the hard rock ground behind him were lifted up. Pieces of rock the size of hills and compressed energy exploded, carrying a destructive aura. Fan Fang's fist was as fast as lightning, covering the sky and earth as it attacked Chen Hao. So powerful. So powerful. Is this Fan Fang's true strength? This punch. Let alone a punch, I can't even withstand a chi explosion. Even a piece of rock could kill me. Countless cultivators were shocked. Even some of the cultivators at the peak of the Mastery Golden Core stage were no exception. Fan Fang's previous two moves could not be compared to this one at all. His aura and power had increased by many folds. It was like a punch from a 3-year-old to a punch from a 20-year-old. The difference was like heaven and earth. I need to use 90% of my strength to block this punch. Duan Yufei's eyes narrowed. I can only dodge this punch. The girl in the blue dress frowned slightly. Can he block it? I can barely block it. Xia Lanlan thought to herself. This Fan Fang is so powerful. I'm afraid only the top 10 inner disciples in the Ling Tian sect can defeat him. Nia Wanshan's face was a little pale. When Fan Fang revealed the inheritance of the Demon King of Tianluo, although he was surprised, he did not think Fan Fang had the ability to defeat him. However, Fan Fang's punch made him realize that even if he could block it, he would be severely injured. Moreover, this was only Fan Fang's third move. It was definitely not his trump card. He had to admit that he was no match for Fan Fang at the moment. 7-star sword finger, third finger fecta. The moment Fan Fang threw out his punch, Chen Hao's hurried voice sounded. After a slight pause, he said, fourth finger fecta. Break it. In an instant, the two moves merged into one. Chen Hao could clearly feel the energy in his dantian being crazily sucked out after he had hurriedly launched two moves. He felt a little depressed in his heart. 7-star sword finger, especially when combined with 7-star footwork, required one to advance step by step and advance step by step. One move after another had to be continuous and complementary. Only in this way could it be smooth and natural. However, Chen Hao had irritated Fan Fang, causing Fan Fang to directly increase the power of his attack by several times. Just from that aura alone, Chen Hao knew that it was impossible to block it with just the third finger. Left with no other choice, he could only forcefully raise his Jin Yuan and break the norm, launching the third and fourth finger in succession. Bang! 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 Immediately, the entire world seemed to explode. The raging energy formed a terrifying hurricane that swept out in all directions. The cultivators surrounding the martial arts practice field quickly retreated in fear. Even so, most of them were forced to use their true essence to resist the flying stone fragments and the hurricane. What was even more shocking was that Fan Fang's Wrath of Heaven was not a short, instantaneous attack. Instead, it was continuous, wave after wave, forcing Chen Hao, who had split into 4 doppelgangers, to continuously attack with his finger. They were in a deadlock. Explode. Hiss. Roar. After a few breaths of time, Fan Fang's Wrath of Heaven was finally unleashed. His whole body was like an arrow, streaking across the sky. In the blink of an eye, he was right in front of Chen Hao. The Demon King of Heaven's net, who was condensed in his fist, roared again. Heaven and earth shook, and a terrible, indescribable energy fluctuation suddenly erupted. To be continued. Chapter 254. Chen Hao had been prepared for this moment. He took a deep breath and pushed his inner yuan to the limit. Pure and majestic inner yuan gushed out of Chen Hao's dantian. 5 fingers of jade. The moment Fan Fang stepped out, Chen Hao's cold voice and Tian Luo Demon King's angry roar exploded at the same time. Chen Hao's 4 doppelgangers suddenly became 5. 6 fingers of sun opening. 7 fingers of light shaking. Immediately after, Chen Hao's voice rang out continuously, and the doppelgangers became 6, then 7. The moment the 7 doppelgangers were formed, the world darkened. Chen Hao stood in the position of the 7 stars, his clothes flapping in the wind. A bright star seemed to have been born between his eyebrows. The 7 stars were shining. The world lost its color. A mysterious and profound aura instantly filled the air. Everyone felt as if they were under the night sky, bathed in the cold starlight of the 7 stars. Everyone's sound, light, and perception were swallowed up. What was more shocking was that even they felt as if time had stopped and they were enveloped by a terrifying aura. Break for me. These 3 cold words finally came out of Chen Hao's mouth when everyone felt suffocated. As the word break came out of his mouth, the space seemed to be torn apart. Chen Hao's 7 doppelgangers suddenly merged into one and pointed a finger. All the energy waves disappeared, all the sound disappeared. In the world, the only thing that could be seen was Chen Hao's sword finger, as bright as the stars. It was filled with endless mystery as it met Fan Fang's terrifying fist. The 2 weapons met in close combat. The fist and finger collided. There were no fancy moves or illusions formed by energy. But everyone present, including Duan Yufei, felt an extreme sense of danger. Fan Fang's sinister, ferocious face instantly froze. He could actually sense the threat of death from Chen Hao's finger. Poof! In the silence of heaven and earth, the fist and finger collided. Then, a soft, piercing sound suddenly rang out. Chen Hao and Fan Fang seemed to have fallen into a state of complete stillness, not moving at all. The sword fingers formed by Chen Hao's forefinger and middle finger disappeared, as if they had all merged into Fan Fang's fist. Pooh! A mouthful of blood spurted out from Chen Hao's mouth. Ah! The entire martial arts practice field erupted with countless screams. This was especially true for the blue-dressed young lady. At this moment, the corners of her dress fluttered and her clothes fluttered. Her beautiful face that was hidden under the black veil was filled with boundless coldness and an aura that could destroy all things. However, after spitting out a mouthful of blood, Chen Hao's eyes were still as bright as stars and as cold as a sword. His body remained motionless. Then, under countless shocked gazes, fine cracks slowly spread out from Fan Fang's fist. Die! Crack! With his mouth full of blood, Chen Hao spat out 2 words in a low voice. To everyone's horror, Fan Fang's body made cracking sounds and blood spurted out from Fan Fang's body. Ah! Impossible, impossible! Fan Fang's terrified scream tore through the sky. However, no one could stop his body from collapsing. The 7 mysterious sword fingers set off monstrous waves in his body, wreaking havoc everywhere. Boom! Flesh and blood splattered everywhere. Chen Hao's body was still as straight as a sword. He grabbed the air and Fan Fang's storage ring floated into Chen Hao's hand. At the same time, Chen Hao's body rumbled and a raging fire rose up around him. Absorb! Ah! With his body destroyed, Fan Fang let out a scream of horror, unwillingness, and humiliation. As a half-step nascent soul cultivator, his soul power was unusually strong. Although he was still a Yin body, he could show his form. Everyone stared blankly at Fan Fang's illusion, which was his soul, which was surrounded by Chen Hao's vermilion bird heavenly fire. Then, crackling sounds of burning could be heard. The illusion disappeared, and his divine soul was destroyed. How is this possible? Fan Fang hadn't used his trump card yet. Cries of surprise exploded in the entire dojo. Even Duan Yufei wore a look of disbelief. No one had expected that Fan Fang would be defeated by Chen Hao's terrifying skill in the 3rd move. Everyone thought that although Fan Fang's move was powerful, it should not have been his final trump card. How could it be destroyed so easily by Qin Hao? Was Qin Hao's attack too mysterious, or was Fan Fang's strength really this weak? Hiss! While the crowd was still in shock, Qin Hao turned into a ray of light and flew quickly towards a huge palace. However, his body was shaking slightly. It was obvious that he was at the end of his rope. At this moment, it was obvious that he wanted to enter the palace to treat his injuries. Let's go, let's go. Several disciples of the Flying Sword sect were filled with fear. Even though they could see that Qin Hao probably had no battle power left, they didn't dare to step forward. Qin Hao was a severely injured tiger, and a casual wave of his claws could tear them apart. Moreover, Duan Yufei, the girl in blue, and other experts were present. At this moment, even if they had 10 times the guts, they wouldn't dare to act recklessly. They all retracted their auras and quickly retreated. Through the crowd that was still in shock, they rushed toward the smaller palace. As long as they could hide in the palace, they would be able to escape by noon the next day. Whoosh! The girl in blue turned into a ray of light and chased after Qin Hao. Duan Yufei hesitated for a moment. Then, he grabbed Xia Lanlan, who was still in shock, and chased after her. You're badly injured. Let me heal you. The girl in the blue dress appeared beside Qin Hao in the blink of an eye and said. What surprised Qin Hao even more was that she had grabbed his wrist. Hiss! At this moment, in fear, Qin Hao immediately performed the carving technique that allowed him to merge with everything in the world. Although this girl in blue had helped him before, they did not know each other. If she had any evil intentions, Qin Hao would not be able to resist. But, what shocked Qin Hao was that she also merged with everything in the world. However, she did not try to grab Qin Hao's wrist. Instead, she transmitted a sentence that shocked Qin Hao. I'm your sister. My sister. Qin Hao's mind raced. The fact that she could merge with everything in the world made Qin Hao realize that she was not an enemy. She was most likely a disciple of the nameless old man like Leng Yihan. But he did not expect the girl in blue to say that. Sister, my name is Qin Shui. The girl in blue said again. At the same time, she grabbed Qin Hao's wrist. Immediately, a vigorous and pure true yuan rushed into Qin Hao's dantian, not allowing Qin Hao to refuse. You are the daughter of the nameless old man and my father? Duan Yufei and Xia Lanlan were both shocked. Especially Duan Yufei. Even with his cultivation, he instantly lost track of Qin Hao and the girl in blue's aura. He could only vaguely sense a faint fluctuation in the air, but he could no longer sense it. The two seemed to have disappeared in front of him. Although it was only for a moment, the two appeared again. That feeling was very real. Humph. Senior brother, let's go. I don't want to see him again. Xia Lanlan saw the girl in blue holding Qin Hao's wrist. She had a glimmer of hope because of Qin Hao's strength, but her expression suddenly changed. Without waiting for Duan Yufei to refuse, she pulled Duan Yufei and flew into the air. In an instant, they rushed out of the safe zone and disappeared from everyone's sight. The girl in blue naturally heard Xia Lanlan's words. She frowned slightly, a little confused. No matter how she listened to it, Xia Lanlan's words sounded like she was sulking with Qin Hao. But she and Duan Yufei were intimate, and they had already confirmed their relationship. Although she felt strange, she did not ask. She just pulled Qin Hao and quickly landed in front of a palace. Qin Shui, you bitch, are you trying to hide? Get back here. I, Nia Wanshan, will settle the score with you. Boom. Nia Wanshan, who did not dare to fly into a rage, saw Duan Yufei and Xia Lanlan leave. What was there to be afraid of? Even if Qin Shui had an affair with Qin Hao, it was nothing. Qin Hao was already a lamp without oil. He had no combat power at all. What was there to be afraid of when a tiger without teeth and claws met a real wolf like him? His only opponent was Qin Shui. Taking advantage of Leng Yihan's absence, Qin Hao, who was on good terms with Leng Yihan, and then suppressed Qin Shui. This was undoubtedly the best result. Even if he could not suppress her, he could just kill her, get lost. I'll deal with you later. Chen Shui executed a peerlessly fierce sword light with a wave of her hand, and it arrived before Chen Shui and forcefully forced Nie Wanshan, who was charging over violently, to retreat. Then, as fast as lightning, she rushed to the door of the palace, opened it directly, and flashed in with Chen Hao. Rumble. The door of the palace was closed. No matter how powerful Nie Wanshan was, he could not do anything. His face became gloomy, and he was so angry that he was about to vomit blood. The power of Chen Shui's instantaneous attack was beyond his expectations and had already made him frown. Now that the two of them were in the palace, once Chen Hao recovered. Without hesitating for long, Nie Wanshan left quickly. He dared to fight Chen Shui, but what about Chen Hao after he recovered his combat power? He would not dare to do so even if he had 10 guts. What are you looking at? In the palace, 2 hours later, to Chen Shui's shock, Chen Hao, who had a freakish recovery ability, actually slowly opened his eyes. His body emitted a wave of energy that made Chen Shui's heart palpitate. It seemed that he had become even more terrifying than before the battle with Fan Fong. However, the moment Chen Hao's bright and deep eyes opened, he looked straight at Chen Shui, who was covered by the black veil. Chen Shui could not help but say. There was a trace of dissatisfaction in her voice. How could he look directly at a girl with such eyes? Especially when the two of them were sitting very close to each other and were sitting cross-legged. Are you really my sister? Can you take off your veil and let me see? Chen Hao said. Dream on. Do you think I'm lying to you? That's not it. It's just that. Just what? Your life aura is erratic, and there's no trace to follow. I can't sense the aura of my father's bloodline. However, although I can't see clearly, you should be very similar to my sister Xiao Yan. Take a look. As Chen Hao spoke, the saber in his hands suddenly flashed, and white crystal fragments flew. In a moment, a beautiful girl appeared in front of Chen Shui. Chapter 255. This should be what my sister looks like now. When she reaches your age, she'll look very similar and be able to pass off as the real thing. However, it's impossible for your temperaments to be the same. Chen Hao stared at the girl in the blue dress. After a slight pause, he continued, my sister is lively, cute, and smart. When she grows up, she'll definitely be gentle, quiet, and understanding. You, on the other hand, are too cold, Chen Shui snorted. She was even more displeased. Chen Hao had praised his sister like a flower. She was looking forward to a better evaluation of herself, but all she got was cold. Especially when Chen Hao spoke of his sister. His gaze was gentle and filled with love, but when he spoke of her, it was as if he was talking to a stranger. We're about the same age, I'm 21, and you're not even 18. Are you trying to usurp the throne? If you don't want to, then forget it. You're wearing a veil when talking to your brother. How do you expect me to recognize you? Take off the veil and I'll recognize you. If I don't, I won't recognize you. No. My master. Mother said that I can't take off the veil in front of anyone. It's fine if you don't recognize me, but I don't care. Remember, if you don't want to die, you'd better activate the teleportation talisman at noon and leave this place. Otherwise, if the disciples of the Flying Sword faction send back the news that you're in the ancient Black Wind Cave, they'll probably do something to you. Goodbye. Chen Shui turned to leave. Fan Fong was a super genius of the Flying Sword faction. If he died, the faction would be the first to know. However, it wouldn't be the seal of life and death, but the longevity tablet. At Fan Fong's level, even if there was a seal of life and death on his soul, it would be removed. Otherwise, it would become one of the factors that restricted his growth. Chen Hao was well aware of this. However, the longevity tablet wouldn't. It was only connected by aura. When Fan Fong died, his longevity tablet would shatter. However, they wouldn't know where Fan Fong was placed. However, the other disciples of the Flying Sword faction would definitely send back the news. Wait. What? You have to tell me which faction you're from and how to find you before you leave, Qin Hao said. You don't even recognize me, so why are you looking for me? I didn't say that I don't recognize him. It's just that I can't say it out loud. After all, we are still strangers, aren't we? Besides, even if I don't look for you, my father will look for you in the future. In 2 months, I will go to the 100 Empire rankings. I will also make a trip back to the mortal world to give the things your mother gave me to father. Why don't you come with me? Qin Hao said. Qin Hao originally wanted to lift Qin Shue's veil, so he deliberately did not admit it. Because Qin Shue gave him a very, very familiar feeling. There were 2 reasons for this familiarity. Firstly, although she and her younger sister Qin Yan had different temperaments, their appearances were extremely similar. Secondly, with Qin Hao's sharp soul intuition, he felt that Qin Shue's words, actions, and eyes didn't seem to be the first time they met. He always felt strange, and the strange thing was Qin Shue's veil. Although Qin Hao felt that this veil was exactly the same as an ordinary veil, and he couldn't grasp any mysteries, his sharp soul intuition made him feel that this veil was definitely not an ordinary veil. In addition, with the treasure-hunting swords whispering in his mind, he was even more certain that Qin Shue's veil was definitely a treasure, and a very high-level treasure that could hide one's aura. In other words, the aura he felt now was definitely not Qin Shue's real aura. Then who was she? Leng Yihan? Qin Hao had thought about it before. After all, Leng Yihan had some characteristics of a woman. Small hands, the occasional loss of voice, etc., all had that kind of aura. But Leng Yihan was a real man, so it shouldn't be fake. Qin Hao could feel a bloody aura from Leng Yihan that only men had. It was an aura that women couldn't have. So he could only rule out Leng Yihan. If that wasn't the case, Qin Shue was most likely Leng Yihan. Then it would be very easy to explain, and there would be no doubts. I'm not going. I recognize you, but that doesn't mean I'll recognize him. My mother has forgotten everything now. She only knows that I'm her disciple, but she doesn't know that I'm her daughter. I only found out when I saw the message my mother left me. You don't have to look for me. The things my mother left him naturally have my identity. If he wants to find me, he can find me. I'm leaving. Qin Shue, who was hidden under the veil, frowned. Her expression became extremely complicated, as if she couldn't control her emotions. Obviously, this matter had affected her much more than Qin Hao. After speaking, she didn't give Qin Hao a chance to speak again. She directly pushed open the palace door, turned into a stream of light, and disappeared into the sky. Her speed was so fast that even Qin Hao couldn't do it. Qin Hao sighed softly and shook his head helplessly. He understood how Qin Shue felt at this moment. It was difficult for him to recognize a sister that he had never met. Moreover, to recognize a father who was abandoned before he was born. Once, Qin Hao also thought that he was a child abandoned by his biological parents. What was he thinking at that time? Even if there was, he wouldn't recognize it. Qin Shue came to help him and recognized him as her brother. She was already much stronger than he was back then. She's still stronger than me. It seems that I have to work harder. After flying out of the safe zone, the girl in the blue dress who called herself Qin Shue gritted her teeth. Her face flashed with a touch of determination, and as fast as lightning, she flew towards the area that wasn't shown on the positioning disc. After a few hours, when she was sure that there was no one around, the girl in the blue dress stopped in a dead hole and gently took off her black veil, revealing a beautiful little face. He must have noticed that my veil isn't ordinary. However, he shouldn't be suspicious. Qin Shue said to herself. As she spoke, the veil shone with a mysterious light and actually merged into her body. At the same time, her graceful figure completely changed in an instant. There were no longer any curves. Similarly, her beautiful face also quietly changed. However, she had just finished changing and was still wearing the blue dress. She looked a little nondescript and almost like a transvestite. She frowned and said, "No, if I happen to meet him again, I'm afraid he'll be even more suspicious. It's better to use my real face. Even the red flame beast can appear, I'm afraid it'll be lively tomorrow." Immediately, the black veil covered her face again. She regained the appearance of the girl in the blue dress. Whoosh! A figure shuttled back and forth in the black-wind ancient cave as fast as lightning and had already entered the area that wasn't shown on the positioning disc. This figure was Qin Hao. After Qin Shui left, Qin Hao didn't waste any time and directly left the safe zone. There were only 2 months of training time. Qin Hao didn't need to change places. He didn't care about Qin Shui's reminder. 2 months' time was enough for him to master the concealment technique. If he couldn't defeat his opponent, there would be no problem for him to escape quietly. 2 days later, under the guidance of the treasure-hunting sword spirit, Qin Hao obtained 5 low-grade spiritual weapons and a lot of black iron ores. Although the demonic beasts he encountered were powerful, for Qin Hao, they were really no challenge. Therefore, Qin Hao could only continue to go deeper and deeper. At this moment, he was about to walk out of the area covered by the transmission talisman. Just as Qin Hao turned into an enormous underground tunnel that was thousands of meters wide, he saw an enormous whirlpool that seemed to be flowing slowly like lava 100 miles ahead. It was particularly striking in the gloomy cave. Underground Cave Mansion. From Ito Ta, Qin Hao had learned that there were countless underground caves in the Black Wind ancient cave. However, in the past 2 days, Qin Hao had discovered many underground caves, probably because he was within the range of the transmission talisman. However, although Qin Hao had discovered many underground caves, they had all been taken by others. It was the first time Qin Hao saw an underground cave mansion guarding the lava whirlpool. Although there were already more than 10 cultivators sitting cross-legged in front of the lava whirlpool. "She's here too." After seeing the dazzling girl in the blue dress in the crowd, Qin Hao's figure flashed and quickly flew over. Hee. Another one. What a majestic blood qi. Not long after Qin Hao rushed in, a figure strangely appeared at the fork in the road. He was dressed in a black robe, and his face was so pale that it was devoid of any color. It was like a freshly painted wall, but his lips were bright red as if he had applied lipstick. His whole body was filled with an extremely cold aura that made people's hair stand on end. A total of 15. 13 of them are at the peak of the late stage of the Golden Core realm. That beautiful girl's aura is obscure. At most, she is at the peak of the late stage of the Golden Core realm. This guy who just came is only at the late stage of the Golden Core realm, but his blood qi is stronger than anyone else. Not bad, not bad. It's enough for me to have a good meal. The zombie-masked figure said eerily. His aura was filled with a strong demonic aura. Obviously, he was a demonic cultivator and was half a step away from the nascent soul realm. "With me, we can open it." After the figure finished speaking, the demonic aura around him suddenly disappeared. At the same time, he took out a human skin mask and put it on his face. In an instant, he became a handsome young man with a graceful demeanor. With this middle-grade spiritual artifact, the Thousand Illusion Mask, even a nascent soul realm cultivator can't sense my aura. It would be better if there is a big harvest in this cave mansion, hiss. His figure flashed and this handsome young man, who looked like a gentleman, rushed toward the lava whirlpool as fast as lightning. Ha! Another lone traveler. Not bad, not bad. Only one more is left. It would be best if there is another lone traveler. That way, we won't have to compete for the right to enter. When Qin Hao appeared in front of the 14 people, one of the cultivators who was at the peak of the Golden Core realm said happily after sensing Qin Hao's cultivation level. Especially after sensing that Qin Hao was only at the Golden Core realm, he was even happier. Upon closer inspection, the lava whirlpool restriction in this underground cave mansion had 16 small whirlpools that looked like black holes evenly distributed in it. This meant that this underground cave mansion was a rare level 4 cave mansion. It required 16 people to activate their energy at the same time to open it. In the Black Wind Ancient Cave, there were usually 4 levels of cave mansions. A level 1 cave mansion required 4 people to open, a level 2 cave mansion with 8 people, and a level 3 cave mansion with 12 people. A level 3 cave mansion was very rare. To be exact, in this area of 100,000 miles, it was rare to not have a complete cave mansion, let alone a level 4 cave mansion. In a level 4 cave mansion, the chances of obtaining a middle-grade spiritual artifact were very high. It was even possible to obtain a superior-grade spiritual artifact. This was definitely a great opportunity. Chapter 256. Chen Hao's gaze swept across Chen Shui's group of 14 and instantly determined that these cultivators were divided into 4 battalions. Chen Shui was alone, and 2 of the 13 were in groups of 5. The cultivator who spoke just now was in one of the groups of 5, and the 3 cultivators who had restrained their auras were in another group. My luck is pretty good, Chen Hao said with a faint smile to Chen Shui, who was sitting alone but frequently attracted the attention of others. After speaking, he didn't mind the gazes of the 13 people and walked over to Chen Shui. In the eyes of the crowd, Chen Hao's luck is pretty good implied that he met the beautiful girl in the blue dress. He's so reckless. If he could get close to this beautiful girl, would he even have a chance? He's only at the late stage of the Golden Core realm. Hee, I seem to be able to see this kid spitting out blood. The 13 people looked at Chen Hao with ridicule in their hearts. Half an hour ago, when the girl in the blue dress arrived, these young disciples were naturally attracted by her peerless appearance and tried to get close to her. Unfortunately, the girl in the blue dress who concealed her aura didn't give anyone a chance. When a solo cultivator from a 7th grade sect tried to use his strength and identity to act frivolous, he was seriously injured by the girl in the blue dress in one move and lost the qualification to enter the underground cave. Because if he continued to stay here, not only would he lose face, but he would also be killed by the girl in the blue dress. He could only scram. To everyone's surprise, the distance Chen Hao approached the girl in the blue dress completely exceeded the limit of ordinary men and women. When he was only a meter away from the girl, he smiled and sat down. What made these guys even more puzzled was that the girl in the blue dress's aura didn't change at all. She actually allowed Chen Hao to sit beside her. Damn it, is this gigolo so good? He's just a little more handsome than us. Did you follow me here? Chen Shui's beautiful eyes hidden under the black veil looked at Chen Hao and frowned. She immediately turned her head and asked through voice transmission. It's just a coincidence. You should leave. I'm afraid that the people from the Flying Sword sect have already reached the entrance of the ancient Black Wind Cave. What are you afraid of? At most, they would send an early nascent soul realm disciple to deal with me, and they wouldn't dare to do it openly. Those 3 aren't ordinary people. Chen Hao pointed out. I know. Be careful, they might be people from the demonic Tao and are very strong. After you enter, use your fastest speed to gather at the core palace. Don't be greedy for the treasures and mineral veins ahead. Chen Shui didn't say anything more. The fact that Chen Hao could come at this time made her feel slightly relieved. Although the other 3 fellows with chilly auras who didn't say a word concealed it very well, Chen Shui's keen perception was still able to capture an obscure evil aura from the 3 of them. If it was Chen Shui alone, she really did not have the confidence. However, with the addition of Chen Hao, there was nothing to fear. Someone is coming. Chen Shui's voice had just sounded when Chen Hao also sensed a rapidly approaching aura. In the blink of an eye, it appeared in everyone's line of sight. My luck isn't bad. Looks like it's just right. The newcomer smiled slightly and calmly swept his gaze over everyone present. When it came to Chen Hao and Chen Shui, it paused for a moment and said. His aura was also restrained, but everyone could clearly feel that this seemingly elegant young man was very strong. What a strong aura. Chen Shui was slightly surprised and said telepathically, "This person is very strong, and he's wearing a mask." Wearing a mask? Chen Hao was slightly stunned. With his keen perception and Chen Shui's keen perception, he could also feel that the newcomer was not as simple as he looked. The energy hidden in his body was extremely terrifying and was definitely stronger than that of Fan Fong, who was half a step away from the nascent soul realm. Moreover, he should be the same as the other three and was definitely not a righteous cultivator. However, Chen Hao couldn't see that the other party was wearing a mask. Faced with this situation, although Chen Hao knew that if the treasure-hunting sword spirit and Itoda sensed it, they would definitely be able to see something, but now he was on an adventure and the mysterious existence had already ruled over all the messy things in his mind. In these 2 days, the treasure-hunting sword spirit only reminded him when he sensed the treasures and mineral veins. Everything else depended on himself. "That's right," Chen Shui said affirmatively. While Chen Hao and Chen Shui were communicating telepathically, everyone stood up. Among them, the cultivator who spoke when Chen Hao came over said, "The 16 of us are here, let's go in. Everyone will rely on their own luck. Don't worry, although we have many people in the Wise King Valley, we will never bully anyone. As long as you don't take anything you shouldn't. Do you think the Wind and Thunder sect is afraid of you? Young lady, after you enter, you are welcome to come to me, Xiao Chuang. A weak gigolo will not feel safe. The Wise King Valley is nothing in my eyes." Hiss. Chen Shui and Chen Hao glanced at each other, and then they paid no attention to these arrogant and despotic sect disciples that thought they had the advantage in numbers. At the same time, they transformed into 2 flowing lights that chose the 2 black hole entrances above the lava vortex and charged over. Hiss. The last person to arrive sneered in his heart. However, at this time, he didn't do anything. Together with the other 3 people with similar auras, he silently merged into the black hole. Idiot. With your cultivation base and appearance, you're like a toad lusting after a swan's meat. She would like me, not you. Let's go. The cultivator from the Wise King Valley said disdainfully to the people from the Wind and Thunder sect. After speaking, the 5 of them also merged into the black hole. The Wind and Thunder sect disciple who was ignored by Chen Shui again had a vicious look in his eyes. He also flew into the corresponding black hole. Hiss. Rumble. The moment the 16 of them gathered, a mysterious and ancient aura spread out. At this moment, the lava whirlpool suddenly sped up and emitted 16 rays of bright red light. Then, Chen Hao and the others appeared in a strange underground cave. This was a huge, dark cave. It was unknown how high it was, and it was impossible to see the top. It was at least 10,000 feet wide. Instead of calling it an underground cave, it was more appropriate to call it another world. Dark clouds as black as ink filled the entire cave. One could reach out and touch them. In the cave, there were a few small palaces that emitted ancient auras scattered around. Huff. Huff, the moment Chen Hao appeared, a gust of wind blew through the cave. The dark clouds in front of him immediately scattered with the wind, like ink spreading in water. It was a black wind. No wonder it's called the ancient Black Wind Cave. It's really dark, Chen Hao thought to himself as he sensed the black wind that was as sharp as knives. If it were an ordinary person, their body would have been torn apart by such a violent wind. Every gust of black wind was filled with violent energy of heaven and earth. The roars of demonic beasts could be heard from afar. It was abnormally terrifying. There are a total of 16 directions in this level 4 cave dwelling. Although Chen Shui and I were next to each other when we entered, we might not meet in advance. She's very strong, especially her speed. The others are not a threat, except for that guy at the back. However, it should be fine if we avoid the battle. Chen Hao thought to himself. After the 16 of them entered this level 4 cave dwelling, they would appear in an underground cave. The 16 caves would converge towards the core. The entire cave dwelling was actually a huge circle with a radius of 40,000 miles. At the center of the cave dwelling was the treasure vault. Every 10,000 miles the 16 of them advanced, the two caves would merge into one. In other words, after Qin Hao advanced for 10,000 li, he would enter the same cave with another person. After another 10,000 li, the other two would enter the same cave with them, and so on and so forth. Finally, all 16 of them would gather at the core palace. Although the routes were so, they would not necessarily meet. It would depend on their speed. If they converged, it was possible for two people to meet at the same speed. However, the probability was very small. Because everyone would advance with all their might, the faster one would pass first and naturally obtain more treasures. Qin Hao did not hesitate. His figure flashed as he faced the demonic beasts in front of him and advanced quickly. Low-grade spirit weapon. Low-grade spirit weapon. Black iron ore. Black iron ore. Qin Shui's speed was as fast as lightning. When she encountered powerful demonic beasts, she would avoid them if she could. If she could not avoid them, she would kill them in one strike. Her perception was even stronger than Qin Hao's. Wherever she passed, she could sense any spirit treasure or ore vein. However, she did not stop. Although the low-grade spirit weapon and black sky ore were precious, she could only give them up. The treasures in the core palace were the most important. As expected of a level 4 cave abode. What a fucking waste. Forget it, as long as we get the treasures in the core palace, we'll be rich. The disciples of the wise King Valley and the Wind and Thunder sect were confident that they would win. Although the other 3 people in a group were strong, they were not as strong as them in terms of numbers and were not a concern. They, who did not understand Qin Hao's strength, did not put Qin Hao in their eyes. Although Qin Shui and the lone cultivator who appeared last were strong and they were not confident of defeating them in a one-on-one battle, they were not a concern in terms of numbers. Therefore, for the treasures in the core palace, the 16 people who entered almost all gave up on the small profits before them. Kiki, in another direction, after a figure appeared in the cave abode, the aura around him suddenly bloomed. Accompanied by a sinister laugh, a pure and terrifying demonic aura spread out in all directions, causing the surrounding dark clouds to rumble. Beautiful girl, a guy with boundless vitality, treasures in the core palace. TSK. I'm drooling, his figure flashed as he charged toward the core of the cave abode. He was as fast as lightning. It's shameful to waste, this is not my style. Well, I'm fast anyway. Treasure hunting, pick up valuable items, don't waste them. With his powerful soul, Qin Hao's sensing ability was on par with the treasure hunting sword spirit. However, his ability to identify treasures was far from it. At this moment, as he flew quickly, he could sense the aura of spirit weapons and or veins coming from some of the palaces. It would be a pity if he gave up just like that. Although an inferior grade spirit weapon was worthless to Qin Hao, it would still be worth a lot if he sold it for pills. Black iron ore was just as precious. It was still very valuable to Qin Hao. Middle grade spirit weapon. Qin Hao, who was scavenging while flying quickly, sensed an aura that was much stronger than the inferior grade spirit weapons he had encountered before. The treasure hunting sword spirit reminded him. Chapter 257. What a strong aura, Qin Hao continued to search as he flew. After traveling for 10,000 miles, he came to the first crossroad, which was the junction of another passage. Even though the treasure hunting sword spirit did not warn him, Qin Hao sensed an aura that was beyond that of a low-grade spiritual artifact coming from the huge palace at the crossroad. I'm afraid that only a middle-tier spirit weapon could produce such a strong fluctuation. Qin Hao smiled. Middle-grade spiritual artifacts were very rare among the disciples of the Golden Core realm. Even a 7th-rank sect would find it difficult to obtain one. Firstly, it was very expensive, which made many people shrink back. Secondly, it was in short supply. Once it appeared in any auction, it would cause a commotion. This was especially true for the most used treasured swords and sabers. Die! Hiss! Qin Hao suddenly increased his speed to the limit. The true core strength around him surged and surged. He slapped at the several powerful demonic beasts guarding the entrance of the huge palace from 100 feet away. These demonic beasts were obviously very powerful in the later stage of the Golden Core realm. If other disciples at the peak of the later stage of the Golden Core realm encountered them, they would have to expend a lot of effort. However, under Qin Hao's abnormal combat strength, there was no suspense at all. The battle ended in just 2 minutes. Open. Not wanting to waste any time, Qin Hao directly activated his energy and violently blasted at the entrance of the palace that was covered with restrictions, brutally destroying it. The door was broken open, and a long narrow passage appeared in front of Qin Hao. It was only 10 feet wide, but thousands of feet long. Qin Hao saw the end of the passage at a glance. On a circular altar, there was a dazzling treasure robe. Middle-grade treasure robe. Ao ao ao. Just as Qin Hao's eyes flashed with excitement and he was about to rush over, the narrow passage suddenly flashed with a dark light. What surprised Qin Hao was that in just a moment, the entire passage was filled with thousands of demonic beasts at the later stage of the Golden Core realm. They were densely packed together, filling the entire passage and roaring at him. Amazing! As expected, the more powerful a treasure is, the harder it is to obtain it. Even though these demonic beasts aren't strong, their numbers are too great. If I want to obtain the treasured clothes, then I must kill all these tigers that stand in my way. If the protective armor was only a low-grade spiritual artifact, Qin Hao would have given up after seeing such a scene. After all, it would take some time to kill all the demonic beasts. However, the aura of this treasure robe was obviously a middle-grade spiritual weapon. It was more precious and rare than a middle-grade spiritual weapon. Qin Hao needed it very much, so he naturally could not give it up. Boom! Boom! Ao ao ao. Soon after, Qin Hao began to hunt violently. Just as Qin Hao was immersed in the dense horde of demonic beasts and began to slaughter them with all his might, a figure emerged from another tunnel and arrived at the intersection. This silhouette was one of the 3 in the group. Middle-grade spirit weapon. TSK. My luck is pretty good. Fortunately, my weakness in speed has been improved a lot. If I were a little later, I'm afraid it would have been snatched away. Well, it's actually this kid. This figure restrained his aura and was slightly surprised when he saw Qin Hao fighting with the demonic beasts. This gigolo's speed and combat strength are far beyond his realm. He is close to a super genius at the peak of the late stage of the Gold Core realm. I really can't tell. Unfortunately, he met me. It won't be too late for me to take action after he finishes killing the demonic beasts. Quietly concealing his aura, this guy slowly approached. Sneak attacks and assassinations were generally disdained by the righteous cultivators. However, not only did the demonic cultivators not care about this, but most of them were proficient in concealment, sneak attacks, and assassination, as long as they could kill their opponents. Therefore, even if they encountered a disciple whose cultivation was much higher than theirs, they would often win. In addition to speed being his weakness, this guy's combat strength was extremely strong. Among the other 2 companions, he deserved to be the first. He was at the peak of the late stage of the Gold Core realm. If he encountered a half-step nascent soul realm master or even an unprepared early-stage nascent soul realm master, he could succeed in a sneak attack. Therefore, although Qin Hao was showing amazing combat strength at this moment, he did not care at all as he hid in the dark. After a full hour, Qin Hao finally killed the last demonic beast. His figure flashed and rushed to the mid-grade treasure robe floating above the altar. Die! Hiss! However, the moment Qin Hao grabbed the treasure robe, a gloomy roar suddenly came from behind him. At the same time, the figure sent out a fierce sword, pointing directly at Qin Hao's back. Hee. Accompanied by a gloomy laughter, this figure was full of confidence and his aura was completely released. This was his strongest move that he had condensed for several minutes. Even if Qin Hao reacted at this moment, he would not be able to block this attack. He stared at Qin Hao cruelly, his heart full of pride. Not only did he get the treasure robe, but Qin Hao also seemed to have become his tonic. As a demonic cultivator, devouring the blood and qi of cultivators was undoubtedly one of the fastest ways to improve one's cultivation. However, what made him slightly surprised was that even though Qin Hao had clearly heard his shout, he did not seem to be surprised at all. The hand that was grabbing the treasure robe directly drew a beautiful arc. His entire body turned smoothly and agilely, and a bright sword light suddenly shot out. This figure saw Qin Hao's expression, but he was not surprised at all. Instead, there was a trace of evil sneer, as if he had already discovered him. Boom! A terrifying energy exploded, and the two figures retreated at the same time. Qin Hao was not in a hurry and kept the treasure robe in the storage space. How is this possible? Brat, you actually discovered me? The guy who was repelled by Qin Hao in one move had a trace of surprise and viciousness in his eyes. He stared at Qin Hao and said coldly. The evil aura around him surged crazily. Your strength is not bad. You are barely qualified to fight with me. Qin Hao slowly raised the five-element sword in his hand and pointed the tip of the sword at the opponent. He said arrogantly, and an incomparably sharp sword intent raged out. Brat, you are only in the late stage of the golden elixir realm. How dare you be arrogant in front of me, the bloodthirsty dire wolf? You should have heard of the methods of the three bloodthirsty wolves, right? Hee hee. Leave the treasure robe and be my dog, and I will let you live. I have never heard of it, and no one will ever hear of it in the future. Qin Hao said disdainfully. Before he finished speaking, he stabbed out with his sword. In an instant, it was as if space had been torn apart. An incomparably sharp sword intent spread out and instantly enveloped the bloodthirsty dire wolf who was hundreds of feet away. You are courting death. Break for me. The bloodthirsty dire wolf roared and punched out. A long blood-red river whizzed out. The monstrous demonic aura instantly locked onto and shattered Qin Hao's sword intent. The bloodthirsty dire wolf used 100% of his strength in this punch. He originally thought that Qin Hao would be shocked when he heard his name. Although he would not surrender, his combat strength would definitely be greatly reduced, which would make it easier for him to kill him. After all, the reputation of the three bloodthirsty wolves was rather resounding to Golden Core Realm sect disciples. However, Qin Hao was not afraid. Instead, he attacked coldly. This made him extremely angry. Boom! The palace shook violently. The terrifying demonic energy was like a flash flood. A blood-red wolf head vaguely appeared and fiercely collided with Qin Hao's sword light. Bang! 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 The ground cracked and Qin Hao retreated 3 steps. However, the bloodthirsty direwolf's body only shook slightly and then violently attacked again. Amazing! This guy's strength is only a little weaker than Fan Fang's. He is only at the peak of the late Golden Core realm. It seems that the demonic cultivators are indeed stronger at the same level. This was the first time that Qin Hao had fought with a demonic cultivator. He did not dare to be careless. He repeatedly waved the 5 elements sword. Sword light attacked and defended in an orderly manner. The battle intent around him soared crazily. He is only at the late Golden Core realm. He is able to block my full strength attack. He should be proud of himself among the disciples of the sect. If he was at the peak of the late Golden Core realm, I am afraid that I would not be able to take him down. The bloodthirsty direwolf's eyes turned scarlet. When he was 500 feet away from Qin Hao, he suddenly opened his fists. A crescent-shaped scarlet arc of light suddenly condensed. Die! Let's see how you block it. Under the bloodthirsty direwolf's control, the scarlet arc of light, which was even more condensed, flashed with a hiss. It seemed to tear the void apart and violently slashed at Qin Hao. Child's play. Sensing the strength of his opponent's attack, Qin Hao's battle-intent soared. Instead of being shocked, he was delighted. Especially in a place where there was no one watching, he had no scruples. Instead of retreating, he moved forward and stabbed out with his sword. Buzz! The 5-elements sword was originally shining with a resplendent 7-colored light. However, with a buzz, it turned into a pure icy blue. At the same time, what shocked the bloodthirsty dire wolf was that although Qinhao had stabbed out with sword chi, what he had actually stimulated was a huge shadow that was almost solid. When the shadow appeared, the air in the palace seemed to freeze. Even the speed of the Scarlet Crescent arc suddenly slowed down. The inheritance of the divine beast Black Tortoise? Boom! Chi! Ao! Just at the instant when the large wolf was shocked, the black tortoise shell forcefully blocked his crimson crescent moon. Qinhao's wrist shook once again, and the black tortoise seal suddenly erupted with a tiger's roar that resounded through the heavens and the earth. Shortly after, an incomparably swift and fierce golden sword light tore through the air, and pierced towards the large wolf's throat with a speed as fast as lightning, before the large wolf's old strength had been used and a new strength had yet to be formed. White Tiger Strike. Puff! The white tiger seal, which was the fiercest attack, was integrated into the sword light. Like a laser, under the bloodthirsty direwolf's frightened eyes, it pierced through his throat. Even before his death, he did not expect that Qinhao, who was only in the late gold core stage, would have the inheritance of 2 divine beasts. Even more so, he did not expect that Qinhao could use such a strange method to display the ultimate attack of 2 divine beasts. Burn for me. His remaining soul consciousness allowed him to hear Qinhao's cold shout. Immediately, his soul was enveloped by a scorching flame. Divine beast vermilion bird, this was his last consciousness. He had been in the cultivation world for many years and had killed countless sect disciples. No matter what, he did not expect that he would die in the hands of a young man in the late gold core stage. Moreover, his soul would be destroyed. He did not expect that in a short time, he would see 3 divine beasts gathered in one body. This was something that seemed impossible to happen. Chapter 258. Phew! Compared to the 7-star alignment, the inheritance power of the 5 divine beasts is only 10% weaker. However, it is more flexible and can exert the power of attributes. It is more suitable for fighting. Qinhao grabbed the storage ring of the bloodthirsty wolf and put it away. At the same time, he took out the middle-grade armor that he had just obtained. The armor was dark yellow in color, and the surface was engraved with fine black runes. It was faintly flowing and emitting a faint black light, like the inky wind in the cave. It carried a sharp aura and contained a trace of Huda's aura. However, what made Qinhao slightly surprised was that although the aura was very strong, the runes at the edge seemed to be broken, and the formation inside could not be operated at all. Qinhao forced a wisp of blood essence into it and engraved his soul mark. With a thought, the armor turned into a stream of light and put it on Qinhao's body. The information of the armor naturally appeared in Qinhao's mind. Doomsday Battle Armor, one of the combination's spiritual equipment sets. No wonder it can't be used, it's the Doomsday Battle Armor. Master. At this moment, Ito Ta, who was controlled by the mysterious existence, suddenly regained his freedom and said in Qinhao's mind. You know. Of course I know. If I didn't see this armor, I would have forgotten. I obtained 4 pieces in the past, but I didn't get the Doomsday Battle Armor. This is a set of spiritual equipment. Without one, it is useless. It is not much stronger than a low-grade spiritual equipment. Only when it is a set, the combination formation can be operated and its true power can be exerted. Master, take out my storage ring and look through it. In the corner, under a pile of ores, there is a low-grade storage ring. Ito Ta said. Hearing Ito Ta's words, Qinhao hurriedly found Ito Ta's storage ring in the 5 elements ring. When Qinhao obtained Ito Ta's storage ring, he did not check it carefully. Naturally, he was not interested in looking through the low-grade storage ring. A moment later, 4 pieces of equipment that were clearly part of the Armageddon armor set appeared before Qinhao. After forcing out 4 streams of blood essence, the gauntlets, leggings, armor, and boots immediately transformed into streams of light that were worn on Qinhao's body. The moment the 5 pieces of the set were assembled, streaks of earthy yellow-golden light rose from Qinhao's body. Soon after, streaks of ink-like black smoke curled around his body, emitting an extremely powerful set aura. Doomsday Armor. It was a top-notch middle-grade spirit artifact armor, and its formation contained the Dark Wind Calamity technique. Dark Wind Calamity. Qinhao was slightly taken aback. He was extremely familiar with this name as it was mentioned in the Taoist scripture. It was a branch of the Grand Calamity technique that was ranked at the top of the 3,000 Grand Daos, and its might was extremely great and contained unfathomable profundities. The Great Calamity art is one of the supreme Tao arts of the heavenly Tao. It is composed of the 3 calamities and 9 disasters. The 3 calamities are Doomsday Calamity, Scorching Sun Fire, Dark Wind Calamity. The 9 disasters are Human Disaster, Earth Disaster, Demon God Disaster, Samadhi Disaster, Nature Disaster, Karma Disaster, Mind Disaster, Soul Disaster, and Tribulation Disaster. It contains the heavenly Tao and can only be mastered by comprehending the supreme profundity of the creation and destruction of heaven and earth. The Dark Wind Calamity attached to this set of middle-grade treasured armor can only exert 1/10,000,000th of its power, which is already good enough. However, it is very useful for you now. It can be used as one of your trump cards. At this moment, the voice of the mysterious existence sounded in Qinhao's mind. Qinhao smiled slightly and was not frightened by the mysterious existence's so-called 1/10,000,000th of its power. Biting off more than one could chew would only hurt one's confidence. Retreating and forming a net, one step at a time, was the most practical. Qinhao could feel that once the defense of the Doomsday Armor was activated, he could basically ignore the attacks of late-stage Golden Core experts. Even Fan Fang, who was half a step away from the nascent Soul Realm, would be able to reduce the damage done to him by at least 30%. If he had worn this treasured armor to fight Fan Fang, Qinhao would have at most suffered light injuries. This was under the premise that he did not activate the Dark Wind Calamity contained in the treasured armor. With a thought, the Doomsday Armor separated from his body. Qinhao quickly took off his outer clothes and put them on. After adjusting the armor to its most fitting state, he put on his outer clothes. Ding ding. Just as Qinhao was about to leave, 2 crisp sounds rang out from the circular altar where the treasured armor was placed. 2 pitch-black key-shaped tokens appeared on the altar. Are these the keys to the core palace? Qinhao was slightly surprised. Strange. It usually appears at the last intersection, but it actually appeared so early. It seems that the higher one's strength is, the corresponding adjustments will be made. Master, put it away. If you can get the keys of the other 13 people, only you and Master Qin Shui can open the core palace. Qinhao replied and put away the 2 keys. He did not dare to waste any time and continued forward. Qin Shui was very strong. The obscure aura on her body made even Qinhao unable to tell what level her true strength had reached. However, the power displayed by the bloodthirsty dire wolf forced Qinhao to re-evaluate the battle strength of the demon Tao. Especially the lone traveler who appeared at the last moment. Qinhao was sure that Guy was definitely stronger than Fan Fang. If Qin Shui encountered him, Qin Shui was still his elder sister after all. Kakik, while Qinhao was killing the bloodthirsty dire wolf, at another intersection thousands of miles away, the bodies of the 3 bloodthirsty dire wolves turned into ghastly white bones amidst the sinister laughter of the handsome masked man. A demon Tao itinerant cultivator dares to be arrogant in front of me, Fujikawa. You really don't know what's good for you. After devouring these 15 people, except for that beautiful girl, my blood soul art will definitely advance to the peak of the 4th level. My battle strength will be comparable to the peak of the early stage nascent soul realm. Surviving the heavenly punishment will not be a problem. Coming to the cultivation world is indeed much faster than coming to the demon realm. Subduing that beautiful girl and bringing her back to the demon realm to be my concubine is not bad. Kakik. There's no need to waste any more time. I'll just wait at the core area and devour them one by one. It'll save me a lot of effort. Fujikawa, half-step nascent soul realm, was a demon Tao sect disciple. If Itoda knew that the other party cultivated the blood soul art, he would definitely be shocked and envious. The blood soul art was an earth-level top-tier technique. It was one of the basic techniques of the demon Tao royal family's supreme technique, the great blood soul art. Once his cultivation level increased, once he obtained the cultivation method of the great blood soul art, he would be able to achieve twice the result with half the effort. Hiss. As soon as Fujikawa finished speaking, he turned into a bloody light and disappeared as fast as lightning. The closer they got to the core palace, the stronger the monsters were, and the number of monsters increased. Even if Qinhao wanted to avoid them completely, it was impossible. Moreover, once the battle started, it would be continuous. They could only kill all the way and move forward. This situation directly led to the need to rest and recover after encountering the palace, even if they did not sense the aura of spiritual weapons and mineral veins. Qinhao, who had abnormal physical strength and vigorous vital essence, was like this. The situation of the others was not much better. Even Qin Shui and the powerful Fujikawa were no exception. The level 4 cave dwelling seemed to adjust the combat power and number of monsters according to the individual's cultivation level, making it impossible for them to move faster. When the 20,000 miles became a gathering of 4 people, Qinhao saw a Wind and Thunder sect disciple and a Wisdom King Valley disciple. When the two of them saw Qinhao alone, they were slightly surprised. However, when they saw the speed at which Qinhao hunted the demonic beasts, they, who originally harbored malicious intentions, did not dare to act rashly. Qinhao ignored them and did not listen to Itoda's suggestion. If others did not offend him, he would not offend them. This was the principle he adhered to. He really could not blindly kill. However, if he encountered treasures and wanted to compete with him, then he would be sorry. In the beginning, the two of them were very wise. Moreover, the two of them were not in the same group. In the tripartite confrontation, it was obvious that Qinhao was stronger. They could only watch Qinhao take the lead and take the treasures. It was fine once or twice, but when they encountered a mid-grade spiritual weapon for the 4th time, the two of them were jealous. After communicating with each other, they decided to cooperate and kill Qinhao, then divide the treasures on Qinhao equally. In the end, they lost their lives for nothing. Qinhao easily obtained 4 keys. At the 30,000 miles entrance, Qinhao also did not encounter anyone. He did not know whether his speed was fast or the others were slow. Up until now, a full 4 days had passed, and there were only 10,000 miles left. Qinhao didn't know, and he didn't expect it at all. Even Ito-ta didn't expect that Qinhao, who was wearing the doomsday armor, would encounter so many demon beasts that his combat power far exceeded that of others. Originally, with his strength, there would be no problem for him to arrive at the core palace in advance. However, because of the aura of the doomsday armor, his speed was slower than some disciples who were much weaker than him. It's been half a day, why is there still no one? A graceful blue figure, standing in front of the entrance of a huge circular palace, thought in her heart. This palace was 3,000 feet in diameter and 5,000 feet in height. It was built with huge pieces of black crystal stones, exuding an ancient and vast aura. A layer of ink-like flowing light circulated around the palace. The gate of the palace was a rare circular shape. It was about 100 feet in diameter. It was completely composed of black iron concentrate. 16 grooves were evenly distributed on the gate, exuding a faint mysterious aura. Chen Shui had been here for an entire day and only had 1 key in her hand. From beginning to end, perhaps because she was too fast, she did not encounter any cultivators. After arriving here, she waited for a full half a day, but still no one came. This made her feel very strange. Not to mention others, with Qinhao's strength, how could he be so much slower than her? Could there be an accident? Qin Shui was a little worried. If he encountered other people, Qinhao should not have any problems. However, if he encountered a masked demonic cultivator, it might be a little dangerous. He. Just as Qin Shui felt faintly uneasy and once again entered the narrow passage at the entrance of the core area, intending to turn back to take a look, a gloomy voice suddenly came from the other end of the narrow passage. Little beauty, can't wait? There are only 4 left. What made Qin Shui frown was that the masked, seemingly elegant young man, at this moment, threw a shriveled cultivator on the ground and looked at her with a lustful expression. Chapter 259. Don't be afraid. A beautiful woman like you, as long as you serve me well, how can I, Fujikawa, bear to kill you? He. Someone's coming. Little beauty, go back inside and wait. Don't ruin my business. When I'm done killing, this core palace will be ours. I'll take good care of you. He. Boom. Along with Fujikawa's arrogant laughter, the disciple who had turned into a dried corpse in front of him was suddenly wrapped in a blue flame and turned into ashes in an instant. Hiss. At the same time, Fujikawa's aura suddenly disappeared, and his entire person hid in a dark corner. Anyone who passed by here would have to suffer a terrifying blow from him. Fujikawa. He's actually Fujikawa. Qin Shui was shocked when she heard the other party's name. Fujikawa was the target of the Immortal Alliance's hunting mission since half a year ago. In just half a year, the bounty had risen again and again, from 100,000 low-grade primordial crystal stones to 3 million. His value was higher than some nascent soul realm devils. Because his combat strength was far from what an ordinary early nascent soul realm expert could compare to, and his concealment and escape skills were extremely high, and he was extremely cunning. Some nascent soul realm experts of the sex had fallen in his hands. Hiss. Qin Shui immediately turned into a cool breeze, completely disappearing into the air. There are still 4 people, which means that he has already killed 10. Fortunately, it's not Chen Hao. Qin Shui's strong perception ability, in fact, before Fujikawa spoke, she had already sensed Chen Hao's unique aura. However, she did not immediately fly into a rage because she had no confidence in defeating Fujikawa. Humph. Little beauty, do you want to die? Get in obediently. Don't think that you can hide from my perception just because you've comprehended the spatial attribute. Otherwise, I'll kill you too. Fujikawa's expression did not change. He looked at the void as if he saw Qin Shui and said sinisterly. Condense. As he spoke, he waved his hand and released a pure and majestic demonic aura that enveloped Qin Shui. Qin Shui was shocked. One had to know that at this moment, she was integrated into all things in the world. With such a concealment skill, she should not be sensed. Therefore, she did not take his words to heart, thinking that he was just bluffing. However, the attack that Fujikawa had clearly discovered her trajectory. How was this possible? Qin Shui did not know that Fujikawa, who cultivated the blood-soul art, was not sensing Qin Shui's aura, but her blood-soul. Merging with all things in the world, Qin Shui could easily conceal her aura in front of most cultivators of the same level or even cultivators 1 or 2 levels higher. However, as long as she did not disintegrate, her blood-soul would exist and she would not be able to hide. Break! Qin Shui didn't dare hesitate any longer. With a shout, she swung her sword at the incoming terrifying energy. At the same time, she urged the laws of space, wanting to rush out and meet up with Chen Hao, who was approaching from 100 kilometers away. You refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. Get out of here. Fujikawa's figure flashed and he no longer hid. He suddenly rushed to the middle of the long and narrow passage. The violent demon energy instantly condensed into blood-red sword light and blasted out in all directions. The scene before Qin Shui's eyes instantly turned blood-red as a group of demons danced about chaotically. This sort of scene was like falling into a mountain of corpses and an ocean of blood in the 9th level of hell, and it caused Qin Shui's mind to be slightly affected. If it wasn't for her soul and mental state that far exceeded an ordinary person, she would probably have directly lost herself within it. Thunderclap ninth heaven. Chen Shui shouted and cut off the opponent's mental attack. Her beautiful eyes flashed with lightning as bright as the stars. She didn't retreat or give way. The sword in her hand flashed with lightning arcs, and with a hum, she violently stabbed out. At the same time, she released 2 types of laws of heaven, space, and lightning. Crack! In an instant, huge thunderbolts shot out from the sword. Hundreds of lightning arcs that contained terrifying energy struck the seemingly real mountain of corpses and ocean of blood. She's actually so strong. Chen Shui's move destroyed Fujikawa's bloodthirsty sword finger that contained a mental attack, which made Fujikawa slightly surprised. He had long sensed that this beautiful girl's obscure aura might not be simple. But in the end, he still underestimated her a little. However, this made Fujikawa even more excited. Very good, very good. With such combat strength, you can rise to the position of my woman. If I don't let you see my true strength, it seems that I won't be able to tame you. He. You're here. Then let's go together. Just as Fujikawa was speaking, a stream of light flew over as fast as lightning. Although Fujikawa was slightly surprised by the speed, when he saw that Chinhao was only in the late gold core stage, Fujikawa became even more excited. Chinhao's vitality was definitely higher than the sum of the 2 or 3 guys just now. And now, in order to tame Chen Shui, he had to pay a little price and use his true ultimate move. In this way, it was naturally best to kill them together. Boom! Ow ow ow! Demon Dao Vital Essence, with the voice of Fujikawa, suddenly erupted and burned fiercely. Around his body, countless burning skulls condensed in an instant. The eye sockets of each skull spewed out blood-red light. Their mouths were wide open, their fangs bared, and they let out a terrifying howl that could confuse one's mind. As for Fujikawa, he was like a demon god that had walked out of Azura hell. The monstrous evil aura pressed down from the sky and earth. 1,000 feet radius was shrouded in a terrifying demonic aura. With a wave of his hand, he covered Chinhao, who was rushing over quickly, and Chen Shui, who was in another direction. Domain? The moment she sensed this aura, even Chen Shui's face suddenly changed dramatically. Chinhao, retreat! Chen Shui cried out in horror. In any case, she never thought that Fujikawa, who was only a half-step nascent soul realm, could condense a domain space. Domain space, 1 in 10,000. Under normal circumstances, only the peak of the late nascent soul realm could stimulate the power of a domain space, and it was only a possibility. 1 in 1,000 peak of the late nascent soul realm would probably appear. The peak of the late nascent soul realm, 1 in 100 people would appear. As the cultivation realm increased, the probability of it appearing would gradually increase. All of these people were super geniuses. However, in the Golden Core realm, even if it was a half-step nascent soul realm, it was basically impossible to appear. Chen Shui was incomparably shocked in her heart. She, who was relatively close, simply had no time to dodge. The moment she shouted for Chinhao to retreat, she clearly felt that not only was her mind greatly affected, but the true qi in her body was also greatly restricted under the power of this powerful domain. She was barely able to display 70% of her cultivation. This was the first time she had encountered such a dangerous situation. What made her even more frightened was that Chinhao had no intention of listening at all. Moreover, it seemed that it was too late even if he listened. He. Condense for me. Hiss. After the domain space with a radius of 10,000 feet enveloped Chinhao and Chen Shui, Fujikawa laughed arrogantly. He opened his hands and slowly compressed them inwards, as if he was holding a 10,000 feet domain space with both hands. In an instant, it shrank rapidly. Fuck. What kind of power is this? When he was 100 miles away, Chinhao had already sensed the aura of the battle between Chen Shui and Fujikawa. Chinhao only knew that the masked guy was very strong, and Chen Shui should not be his opponent. Therefore, he used all his strength and rushed all the way. With the powerful defense of the doomsday armor, he did not even care about the attacking monsters, fearing that Qin Shui would be in danger. When he was hundreds of feet away, he did not care about anything and violently attacked with his sword. Before he could figure out what was going on, he fell into Fujikawa's domain space. Domain space. Itota's voice appeared in Chinhao's mind. Domain space? What is that? When Chinhao stepped into the world of cultivation, he improved by leaps and bounds. Coupled with the fact that he did not pay much attention to the cultivation methods of the world of cultivation, his basic knowledge was far from enough and could not be compared to Qin Shui. Therefore, he did not know the concept of domain space at all. It's a kind of magical ability with the nature of potential. The more powerful it is, the easier it is to activate. It also has something to do with the bloodline inheritance. This guy must have the royal bloodline of the demon race. Under his domain, he is the absolute master. Anyone who is trapped in it will not be able to use 40% of their combat strength. I'm afraid you can only use 50% of your true essence and your mind will be affected. But his strength can be increased by 2 times. If you want to defeat him, you can shut up. The voice of the mysterious existence suddenly sounded, but Itota's voice was cut off. The speed of the communication of consciousness was only a spark of lightning. Chenhao did not have the slightest objection to the mysterious existence interrupting Itota. Because he knew that if he wanted to become a true powerhouse, he could only rely on himself. This was the training he had to go through. Hiss. Chenhao felt that he was uncontrollably gathered together with Qin Shui and stopped when they were 10 feet apart. The entire domain space also became only 100 feet in size. But at this moment, the suppression of Chenhao and Qin Shui was even stronger. Just as Itota said, Chenhao clearly felt that his true essence seemed to have solidified and became extremely heavy. Moreover, his mind was also affected to a certain extent. He. It seems that the heavens are really helping me. My domain space has been compressed to such an extent, but the two of you can still maintain your calm mind. It's really rare. This kind of soul force is enough to match the total of those trash just now. He, little beauty, how is it, have you seen my strength? If you give up resistance now and surrender, it's not too late. I, Fujikawa, have the royal bloodline of the devil race. Not to mention you, even an early nascent soul stage cultivator, or even a middle nascent soul stage cultivator, can only be killed by me. To be able to become my, Fujikawa's, woman is definitely a supreme honor. Don't think that I'm just a devil cultivator. I'm a disciple of a powerful sect in the devil realm. I just came to your cultivation world to play. He. I'll give you 3 breaths of time to consider. Either give up resistance and let me control you, or die. I'll devour this kid first. What a majestic blood chi. He. Dream on. Chenhao, I'll break his domain and you run away immediately. Run away. A small domain is not difficult for me. You watch me. Don't risk your life until the last moment. Chenhao stared coldly at Qin Shui, who seemed to be going all out, and directly burst out curses. So you two have an affair. Hearing the words of the 2 people sacrificing themselves, Fujikawa's voice suddenly became colder. Kid, die for me. There's no way to speed up the update during this period, so I can only save the manuscript. On the 11th, the whole family has to go to Chengdu to visit relatives. On the 12th of October, we have to go to Nanjing for a few days to attend the annual meeting of the publishing house. I really have no choice but to try my best to maintain the 2 chapters every day. The outbreak will only start after the middle of next month. I hope everyone understands, thank you. Chapter 260. Hiss. Blood-red tentacles strangely appeared in the domain space. They were like fast-growing vines that wrapped around Chenhao from all directions. Fuck off. Break for me. Boom! Chen Hao was already prepared. A raging black flame instantly erupted from his body, raising the power of the Doomsday armor to the limit. He took a step forward and slashed out with the 5 elements sword. The resplendent 7-colored sword gleam carried a terrifying sword essence. Although Chen Hao could only use 50% of his true origin, the power, speed, and sharpness displayed at this moment were still shocking, causing the entire domain space to tremble violently. The vine-like blood-red tentacles were cut off with a crackling sound and collapsed upon contact. However, what made Chen Hao slightly shocked was that in such a short period of contact, he actually felt that his energy, blood, essence, and spirit seemed to have been devoured by the blood-red vines. This is really surprising. The late-stage golden elixir realm actually has such strength. Middle-grade combination treasure armor, middle-grade combination treasure sword, powerful soul force, majestic blood chi. Hee. It's a pity that I didn't cultivate the great possession technique. Otherwise, it wouldn't be bad to use it as my main body. However, under my domain, how can you block my blood-soul arts? Blood-soul technique? Chen Shui and Chen Hao were shocked at the same time. This time, Chen Hao finally did not need anyone to guide him, and he already knew. The blood-soul technique. Not only did he see it in the summary of the Eastern continent, but it was also recorded in the Essentials of Taoism. It was a branch of the Great Blood-Soul technique and was also the basic cultivation technique for cultivating the Great Blood-Soul technique. Wang. Chen Shui, who was originally cursed by Chen Hao and still had hope, didn't hesitate at this moment. She suddenly bit open the tip of her tongue and spat out a mouthful of blood essence onto the spirit sword in her hand. A violent rumble sounded out, and an azure ball of light started to condense on the body of the sword at a shocking speed. Chen Shui clearly felt that the energy, essence, and spirit in her body were being crazily extracted at this moment. Chaotic lightning sword. It was the strongest attack that Chen Shui had cultivated after she comprehended the thunder attribute's true essence. Up until now, she had only cultivated to the 4th stage of the thunderclap 9th heaven. But now, under the pressure of Fujikawa, she had no choice but to forcefully use the 5th stage that completely exceeded her limit, heavenly thunder breaking the sky. Crack crack, bitch, do you really want to die? Fujikawa didn't expect Chen Shui to unleash such a powerful force. He originally thought that Chen Shui wouldn't be able to cause any ripples in his domain, but at this moment, the ball of light that Chen Shui condensed on the sword made him feel a trace of danger. At the very least, his domain power alone was no longer enough to completely suppress it. Furthermore, the blue ball of light's energy was still gathering at a crazy rate. It had not completely exploded yet, but it had already shattered the countless vines he had sent out. He wasn't worried that Chen Shui and Chen Hao would be able to escape, but if he wanted to control Chen Shui, he would have to start devouring and destroying her. It would be a waste to devour such a peerless beauty just like that, but it seemed that this was the only way now. Just as Fujikawa was determined to start devouring Chen Shui who didn't know what was good for her, something that made him a little dumbfounded happened. At this moment, Chen Hao actually swung his sword and cut off a countless number of blood-red tentacles. He arrived in front of Chen Shui in a natural and smooth manner. A palm slammed onto Chen Shui's head. Immediately, he hugged the unconscious Chen Shui and swiftly retreated. Boom! After losing Chen Shui's control, the ball of light that was filled with endless thunder and lightning exploded, causing the domain space to shake violently. Countless blood-red tentacles turned into dust. However, it didn't break the domain space. Obviously, the power that Chen Shui had gathered was far from enough. Similarly, without Chen Shui's control, it couldn't unleash its true power. He. Kid, a wise man submits to circumstances. Since you've helped me so much, then I'll let you die quickly. Don't worry, I won't let you suffer any pain. He. Fujikawa's blood-red eyes had a hint of excitement as he said with a sinister smile. No matter what, he would never have thought that Chen Hao, who seemed to have an affair with Chen Shui just now, would actually betray him under the threat of death and help him stop Chen Shui's desperate attack. This was undoubtedly a great help to him. At least, he would be able to obtain the stunning beauty who had fainted. He naturally thought that Qin Hao did this in order to let him go. However, to him, knowing how to repay a debt of gratitude was nothing but bullshit. At most, he would let Qin Hao die quickly. Qin Hao was slightly stunned. Wasn't this too much of a narcissist? Can't you spare my life? Immediately, Qin Hao stared at Fujikawa, who was standing proudly, and said, "No. You can only blame your vitality and soul for being too tempting. If you were like those few pieces of trash, I might have really spared your life. Don't worry, I'll let you die happily as long as you don't resist." "All right," Qin Hao said as if he was in despair. After saying that, he slowly closed his eyes, as if he had really given up resisting. "Very good." Fujikawa looked at Qin Hao approvingly and said, "Hiss." Blood-red tentacles once again wrapped around Qin Hao. However, it was at this moment that Qin Hao's closed eyes opened once again. There was no dazzling light in them, only simple, unadorned, as kind as water, unmoved by favor or disgrace. "Break for me." Rumble. When the blood-red tentacles were about to reach Qin Hao's eyes, the sword in Qin Hao's hand did not release any true yuan. There was only a buzzing vibration. There was no sword light. There was only an incomparably sharp slash. At this moment, Qin Hao looked relaxed. In fact, his mind was restrained to the extreme. Every trace of vitality seemed to be wrapped in his body, circulating endlessly. However, it was limited to the sword and his body. There was not a trace of it leaking out. At the same time, Qin Hao's powerful soul force was also limited to his body and sword. At this moment, his vitality, energy, and soul were like a sealed container. Only his body was strong. This was the only way Qin Hao could resist the blood-soul tactics. Qin Hao was not like Qin Shui, who only knew the horror of the blood-soul tactics. He was clear about the cultivation method and the mystery of the blood-soul tactics. Qin Hao also had the supernatural power that could resist the blood-soul tactics. It was just that he was pressed for time and did not have the time to cultivate it. Otherwise, Qin Hao would not use the most primitive but easiest way to deal with Fujikawa's devouring. However, Qin Hao believed that even Itoda, who was at the peak of the late nascent soul stage and had devoured countless souls, was not as good as him in terms of soul force, let alone Fujikawa, who was only half a step away from the nascent soul stage. With Qin Hao's current soul force and the true yuan of the golden core stage, his control was far beyond that of an ordinary late golden core stage cultivator. As long as he restrained enough and did not leak any of his power, the other party would not be able to devour him. This was indeed the case. How is this possible? The sudden change made Fujikawa, who thought that Qin Hao had accepted his fate, unable to react. What surprised him even more was that when Qin Hao cut off his devouring tentacles, he could not devour a trace of qi, blood, and energy. While Fujikawa was surprised and angry, Qin Hao was also slightly surprised. His original intention was to stop the other party from devouring his qi, blood, and energy. However, he did not expect that after completely containing his essence, qi, and spirit, and purely strengthening himself and the treasured sword, he was surprised to find that the suppression he suffered in the domain space had completely disappeared. The true yuan in his dantian could not feel any suppression. The domain space is a space that contains soul force and mental force alone. Although I am now in the space, my own aura is completely cut off from the domain space, forming a world of its own. It must be so. Qin Hao's mind raced and he instantly understood what was going on. Kid, you are courting death. So what if you know how to resist my blood-soul art? After a brief shock, Fujikawa shouted sternly, die. Qin Hao was able to resist the devouring of his blood-soul art in such a way, which indeed shocked him, but it was only shock. In the domain space, his strength could be doubled. So what if Qin Hao was a little late golden core stage cultivator? One blow to kill. As long as Qin Hao was seriously injured or killed, it would be faster for him to directly approach and devour. With the word die, Fujikawa threw a punch at Chin Hao. Boom! 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 Countless fist shadows spread out and bombarded Chin Hao from all directions in the domain space. Looking at the dense fist shadows that were filled with terrifying energy, Chin Hao was not afraid at all. With one hand holding Chen Shui, who was warm and fragrant, in the other hand holding the sword, he drew a circle in front of him that seemed to be slow but was actually fast. This brand new method of using energy to strengthen one's own furnace made Chin Hao feel an unprecedented strength that came from his own body. He was not in a hurry to use his ultimate move. Instead, he treated Fujikawa as his training target. Ding ding ding, boom boom boom. The five elements sword actually cut off the terrifying fist shadows that were close to Chin Hao. Accompanied by the sound of metal clashing and a terrifying explosion, Chin Hao's figure was as tall as a mountain and as straight as a sword. The five elements sword, which was like a full moon, protected him and Chen Shui so that not even a drop of water could leak out. The raging explosive energy was unable to enter at all. Under the urging of Chen Hao's mind, Chen Shui slowly woke up. In an instant, she was clear about her own situation. She had forcefully activated the fifth level of the chaotic lightning sword, sky-piercing thunder. Originally, she would have to bear a huge backlash. Even if she could break through Fujikawa's domain, she would be seriously injured. Whether she could escape or not was still uncertain. But she could only do that. Unless it was really an irreversible situation, she would not make any calls for help. In fact, she was risking her life, but definitely not risking her life like Chin Hao wanted. It was just that she did not expect Chin Hao to actually stop her. Are your injuries serious? If not, restrain your aura. Don't let your strength and mind leak out. Only strengthen yourself. You will be pleasantly surprised. Accompanied by the terrifying explosion, Chin Hao's voice drilled into Chen Shui's ears. Faced with Fujikawa's increasingly powerful attacks, Chin Hao hugged Chen Shui and could not really unleash his full strength. If Chen Shui could defend herself, it would undoubtedly allow him to fight to his heart's content. Because, at this moment, Fujikawa was far more powerful than Chen Hao. His strength was more than twice that of Fan Fong. Even if Chen Hao used his ultimate move, he might not be able to kill him in one blow. There might even be a loophole and he would not be able to take care of the unconscious Chen Shui. If that was really the case, Chen Shui, who did not have any protection, would probably be directly shattered into pieces by the terrifying energy. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Chapter 261. Let me try first. Seeing that Chen Hao was still transmitting his voice to her while dealing with Fujikawa's terrifying attack, Chen Shui did not dare to think too much and transmitted her voice to him. She immediately did as Chen Hao said. However, she still let Chen Hao hold her and did not move as if she was still unconscious. How can this kid's strength be so terrifying? Even among the super geniuses of the rank 8 and rank 9 sects, there are very few who have such combat strength. Could it be that he used some secret technique? The more Fujikawa fought, the more shocked he was. He had been in the cultivation world for almost a year, especially in the past 6 months. Due to the continuous increase of the bounty, the disciples of the sects who were hunting him were getting stronger and stronger. He had even met a few super geniuses of the rank 8 sects. However, in his domain space, no one could be like Chen Hao. At this moment, something happened that made Fujikawa frown even more. Chen Shui, who was unconscious, suddenly disappeared from Chen Hao's arms strangely, as if she had torn the void apart. Oh no! Fujikawa sensed Chen Shui's qi and blood that had integrated into the space law and felt slightly uneasy. It was not that he was afraid of Chen Shui, but that Chen Hao was holding Chen Shui and his combat strength was affected to a certain extent. However, Chen Shui woke up and there was no leakage of energy. This meant that Chen Shui also had the ability to resist his blood-soul tactics. Chen Hao alone had already made him unable to fight for a long time. What if Qin Shui joined in? He was afraid that the domain space would be destroyed by the two of them. Once the domain space was destroyed, not only would Fujikawa be severely injured, but Qin Hao and Qin Shui would also be released and unleash their true combat strength. Then, it would be impossible for him to fight against them. Thunderclap Ninth Heaven. Bang! It was the same sword move, and it was under the situation where Qin Shui had consumed nearly half of her strength. However, at this moment, using the method that Qin Hao said, she completely used her body as a cauldron and did not allow any energy to leak out. However, she displayed energy that was not suppressed by the domain space. This surprised Qin Shui. Buzz! The domain space shook violently. Qin Hao was not surprised to see that Qin Shui was able to comprehend his fighting style in a moment. In fact, Qin Hao was also clear that other than Qin Shui, the others would not be able to do it even if they were given a few months to cultivate, let alone such a short time. This was because it required an extremely powerful soul force and control. As for Qin Shui, in terms of soul power, she was definitely not much weaker than him. This could be seen when facing Fujikawa's mental attack. You focus on bombarding the domain spatial barrier. I'll deal with him, Qin Hao said. Yes. Good, good, good. You two puny Golden Core Realm cultivators can actually force me, Fujikawa, to such an extent. It's enough for you to be proud. It's all because of you, bitch. If I wasn't greedy for your beauty, I would have sucked you dry long ago and wouldn't be in such a sorry state. Humph. I will let you know the true power of my domain space. Die, all of you. Ah. Fujikawa did not dare to hesitate at this moment. He knew that once he did so, whether it was Qin Hao or Qin Shui, he would not be able to devour them at all. Not only would he die without leaving any residue, but he would also be seriously injured. However, if he did not do so, he would be the one to die after the two of them broke through the domain space. Now, the only thing he could do was to risk his life. He would lose 800 of his own men and 1,000 of his enemies. Anyway, there was no one else in this level 4 cave abode. Even if he was seriously injured, as long as he entered the cave abode's core palace to cultivate in seclusion, he would be able to recover. Be careful. Qin Hao and Qin Shui exclaimed at the same time. In the instant that Fujikawa raised his head to the sky and let out a long howl, he actually gave up on attacking Qin Hao. The energy around him was unrestrained and completely integrated into the domain space. In an instant, the entire domain space started to shrink once again. This sudden change was so sudden that even Qin Hao and Qin Shui could not adapt to its rhythm. Once again, they felt that the vital essence in their bodies was slightly suppressed. Whoosh! Feeling the great danger, Qin Hao did not dare to continue fighting. His figure was as fast as lightning as he grabbed Qin Shui with one hand. At the same time, the vital essence in his body was crazily injected into the doomsday armor. A pitch-black light bloomed like a black hurricane, protecting him and Qin Shui within it. Dark wind disaster, break for me. Domain self-destruct, die. Rumble. An earth-shattering explosion suddenly sounded. The domain space, which had been compressed to only a few hundred feet in radius, directly exploded. The terrifying energy instantly destroyed the long and narrow passage. The mountains collapsed and the earth cracked, and the cave ceiling pressed down. Whoosh! Whoosh! Two streams of light shot toward the core palace at a speed that tore through the void. Wherever they passed, the caves collapsed and were filled. The first stream of light to rush into the core palace area was Fujikawa. A huge black gold shield had appeared in his hand at some point in time. The shield was covered with blood-red runes and emitted a blood-red light. It contained an extremely powerful demonic power that protected his body. But even so, Fujikawa was bleeding from his 7 orifices. He fell heavily from the void onto the solid ground. It was not until he hit the huge palace that he rebounded 1,000 feet away and stopped. He lay motionless on the ground. Obviously, the heavy injuries he suffered were completely beyond his expectations. The other stream of light that was as black as ink was Qin Hao and Qin Shui. The two of them had also lost control. Like Fujikawa, they hugged each other and rolled and hit the palace. They fell to the ground and were also motionless. How is this possible? The self-destruction of my domain did not destroy them. Fujikawa, who had been relieved, was extremely shocked when he saw Qin Hao and Qin Shui tumbling and falling from above him. He really could not imagine how the two of them could withstand the power of the self-destruction of the domain. Not to mention them, even a mid-nascent soul realm expert would probably be blown to pieces. Recover, recover. I have to recover as quickly as possible and kill them. Otherwise, I will be the one who dies. I have the royal bloodline of the Devil clan. My recovery speed will definitely be much faster than theirs. No, there is no need to kill them. Since they have not been turned into powder, I can completely devour them while they are seriously injured. Hee. Heaven is helping me. Although Fujikawa could not summon any strength at this moment, his mind was still sensing. He could clearly sense that Qin Hao and Qin Shui's aura were weaker than his and their injuries were more serious. It was impossible to recover in a short period of time. This made him forget the intense pain in his body. He was abnormally excited. However, just as he was about to close his eyes and start healing, his expression suddenly became sluggish. How is this possible? Fujikawa felt boundless fear. After Qin Shui and Qin Hao rolled on the ground, they were separated by several feet. Both of them were bleeding from their 7 orifices, especially Qin Shui. If it were not for the support of her strong mind, she would have long fallen into a coma with such a huge injury. Quick, heal. Qin Shui was very clear that what they needed to fight for now was time. Whoever recovered first would be able to survive. Therefore, when she saw Qin Hao looking at her, she hurriedly said. However, before she could say the word injury, what surprised her was that Qin Hao actually propped himself up. A large number of healing pills flew into his mouth as he walked step by step towards Fujikawa, who was 1,000 feet away. The distance of 1,000 feet could originally be covered in the blink of an eye. But now, Qin Hao was swaying. His speed was not even comparable to a 3-year-old child's. But it was just like this that made Fujikawa's heart break. Don't come over. If you dare to kill me, you will not be able to escape the pursuit of the Devil Emperor's bloodline and the Blood Demon sect. Your sect, your family, every single one of them will die. Fujikawa felt the true threat of death. His expression was ferocious as he unleashed the last of his strength and threatened Qin Hao. Those who said that to me are all dead. You will not be an exception. Qin Hao's originally swaying figure became more and more stable. His abnormal recovery ability surprised Qin Shui, and Fujikawa, on the other hand, was in despair. Die. Fujikawa still wanted to say something, but Qin Hao did not give him another chance. A cold blade light appeared strangely. At the same time, Qin Hao's already weak aura completely disappeared. A moment later, amidst Fujikawa's screams, flesh and blood flew everywhere. Except for the masked head, he was brutally dismembered by Qin Hao. Until there was no trace of life, Qin Hao fell to the ground with a plop and let out a long sigh. 11 keys. The others all died in this guy's hands. 15 minutes later, Qin Hao stood up again and put away Fujikawa's storage ring. He picked up the 11 keys that had fallen beside his body. Mask. His mask is a treasure. Don't destroy his head. You can receive a reward. Xia Shui, who had only recovered a little strength and was unable to stand up, said to Qin Hao. Okay. Qin Hao responded and reached out his hand to wipe Fujikawa's face. Immediately, a thin mask that looked like human skin appeared in his hand. He forced out a wisp of blood essence and merged his mind into it. Immediately, he felt a mysterious aura. It is indeed a good treasure, hiss. In an instant, the mask was on Qin Hao's face. Qin Hao let out a sinister sneer at Qin Shui. Disgusting. Hurry up and change it. Chen Shui was hidden under the veil. Her pale and beautiful face revealed a smile as she scolded Chen Hao. Hee hee. Take out the key. Let's go in and heal. Chen Hao put Fujikawa's terrifying demon-like face into a low-level storage ring. After putting it away, he also took off his mask and carried Chen Shui without any restraint. Chen Shui's delicate body trembled slightly, but she did not struggle. Only under the black veil, her pale face frowned slightly. Since she was born, no man had been able to have such intimate contact with her. When she was being carried by Chen Hao in the battle just now, she had no time to think about anything. But now, it was different. The 16 keys gathered together and turned into a stream of light, sinking into the 16 grooves on the palace gate at the same time. At the moment of sinking into the grooves, the circular gates suddenly shone with an incomparably bright light. After a rotation, the palace gate rumbled open. Chen Hao carried Chen Shui and stepped in. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.